What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Season Gaming Bitcast. Another lovely Sunday morning here. I am your host, Ainsley Bowden, joined as always by my two partners in crime. To my right or left, Mr. Ty Guy Travis. How you doing, brother?
McClunky, happy to be here.
I was waiting for you to say something else. Just kind of.
I felt like there was the second half of the sentence, and then I was like, I'm very tired. I'm gonna quit while I'm ahead in this sentence.
All good. And my other partner in crime, Mr. Hogue Law. You know him as Virtual Legality. What's up, man?
Hey, good morning. I'm happy to be here, but I can certainly understand being tired as we all live with the lies the government foists on us. What time is it, gentlemen?
What is time?
What is time?
What
yeah,
is
you
time?
better. What is time?
Yeah. Travis and I were joking before the show that playing games late, and then before you know it, you've lost that extra hour, and suddenly you've only got a couple hours of sleep.
That is what happened to me. It was 2 a.m. and I thought, Travis, you'll go to bed an hour at 3. And then an hour later, I looked at the time and it was 4, and I was like, oh no, that's too little sleep. So
yeah.
I played
and this
a
show is
dangerous
8
game.
for you.
Yeah, I played a dangerous game with the margin of error for time, and it bit me. So 3 hours of sleep, but whatever. I did it to myself. I'm trying to catch up on games.
It worked out just fine last week. We'll
For
just
sure.
into some debate positions. It'll be
This
grand.
is true. By the way, we got a lot of good feedback on last week's episode about not only the discussion, but the Hogue and Travis debate, if you will. But I think people, as we joked after the show, people recognize it wasn't a real debate, right? It was more of just opposing.
It was a real debate, but it wasn't an attack. I mean,
right?
I mean,
that's fair.
Great.
I'd say it was a debate. That was also my favorite episode of the show.
Having arguments about differences, as long as you don't go to ad hominems, you don't do attacks. That's great. That's what life's about. Have fun.
No doubt. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So, good morning, chat. Good to see everyone. Dan is traveling with the family this week. He has planned vacation for a while, so he is not with us this week, but he will be back next week, of course. So, we've got a few things to talk about this week. I've got a on-the-spot question for you guys. We're going to kick off with, we got to talk some more Elden Ring, because Elden Ring, I want to talk a little bit about what we've been playing, because I finally have broken off of Elden Ring and started playing some other games. We've got some news on Overwatch 2, which I think is interesting. We've got PlayStation's State of Play. We've got Xbox's critical ratings from 2021 I want to chat on, and just a few other little things as well. So, guys, before we get into what we're currently playing, let's start with the on-the-spot question. And this is kind of born out of some of my experience this week. So, I've been fortunate that the guide I wrote for Elden Ring, for whatever reason, I must have gotten shared somewhere because it blew up this week. Like, it was already doing well, but this week it blew up.
I'm seeing it retweeted all over my timeline from folks that are not affiliated with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. So it's great, right? I mean, that's why you create content. And I've had tons of people, like there's tons of people in my DMs asking me questions as they play through Elden Ring, because I've played way too much of it, and that's fine. I love helping people. But what it occurred to me as I talked to some other people and see some other people, right? I'm starting to see those people pop up where it's like, yeah, I 100% of the game. I've got 50 hours, 100%. I got all the achievements. Elden Ring is done. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. And if that's the way you enjoy games, by no means am I going to say how anyone should play or enjoy games. Everyone does that. That's a personal decision, right? But you cannot 100% Elden Ring in 50 hours. Can't be done. The other thing is the achievements do not represent even remotely the whole of experience of Elden Ring, because the achievements are mainly tied to specific bosses in the game. And there's just a tremendous amount of area and dungeons and all kinds of other stuff in that game that aren't tied to achievements. So 100% in the game of achievements doesn't mean you've 100% of the game by any stretch of the imagination. But the question I want to ask you guys relating to that is, personally, what are your feelings on people who play through a new kind of single player experience, be it Elden Ring, be it Horizon, be it any big, single player game, with a guide from the outset so that they don't miss anything? My feeling on that is really strange to me, because for me, it feels like it almost kills the experience. Like, you take away all of the surprise, all of the discovery, all of the excitement of figuring things out or solving things yourself. And the reason I brought up achievements is I typically see this in the vein of someone saying, well, there's 8 missable achievements and I don't want to play it again, so I'm going to look them up ahead of time so I don't miss them as I play. And if you love achievements and trophies, of course, that's your prerogative. But to me personally, again, and I'm asking you, it's just very strange to me. And it came to mind with Elden Ring, because Elden Ring is so magical from a sense of exploration and discovery, and just every moment finding something cool and new, that just saying, okay, I'm going to do this quest line, and looking up at step by step. And it's just like, it's like you've robbed yourself of the joy of kind of figuring things out, in my opinion. Wondering where you guys stand on that.
You want to go first, Travis?
Sure. Yeah. This is so weird that this came up, Ains. I actually just got in a conversation with my editor in chief, Dan Stapleton.
I did see Dan post about it too.
Yeah, and his thing was like, how could you not use a guide for a game like Elden Ring, where you have to use a certain emote at a certain time of day to solve a quest and that sort of stuff, and all that like crazy stuff. And I explained to him that I've never used a guide for any game. To me, it's sacrilege. It's just not how I do things. And I have a hard time in interacting with people who use guides, because I'm just like, what, why would you do that? Like that, don't you feel like you're kind of like cheating, kind of taking like the fun out of it? And I'm clearly in the minority here. People love guides, people like YouTube tutorials and min-maxing, that sort of stuff. But the way I think of it is like, there's two types of people. There's people who want to use the Legos to build whatever they want, and there's people who want to use the Lego sets to follow the instructions and build the exact display unit that they got in the box. You know what I mean? And I think people that use guides are the people that want the Lego creation built exactly to specifications and on display. And I'm sort of the other persuasion, where you give me a box and I just want to like experience it and figure it out and do it on my own and that sort of thing. And to me, it is really, I don't know, I just, ever since I was young, like, seeing the Prima guides, whatever those books were on the counter, people would be like, oh, $8 at GameStop, you throw in this guide. And I was just like, nah, like, what's the point? If I'm just going to be following the guide, what's the point? So it's definitely not for me. When I get achievements, when I achievement hunt, it's because I like a game so much. I'm just looking for more reasons to play it. And I'm like, oh, well, here's this checklist I can do now that I'm through everything else. But I understand the hesitation with games like Elden Ring, because I played my first Dark Souls game. I went in completely blind, had no idea what I was getting into, and it took me like a year to figure out that the game had multiplayer in it. Like, I just didn't know that was a thing, because the game doesn't tell you. And so I understand it, but it's not for me. And when my friends use guides, like I'm playing Elden Ring through with a couple of my friends, and they're all using guides to figure out like where the best weapons are and stuff like that. And I'm just like, stay out of my game. I don't want to be tainted by your min-maxed build that you figured out where to run here and where to run there to kill this boss and that boss to make sure you have the best loadout. And I'm just like,
I see. That's what I see on Twitter, right? It's like, I'm 30 hours in, and it's like, you can see they're wearing armor that's like a long quest line they never would have figured out. And like, I've got this spell, and it's like just posting clips of like, killing bosses real easily. It's like, but what did you accomplish? Like, it just makes no sense to me. I don't know, but
different strokes for different folks, I guess.
Yeah, I know. As long as they enjoy it, like I said, I'm not trying to say it's a bad thing, but it's weird to me, as you said. Rick, where you fall on this?
Yeah, I'm somewhat similar to Travis. I could tell you why people do it at GameStop's and Electronics Boutique. That's because that's where we made all our margin, was on strategy guides and things like that. But that's why they push those things. I actually feel I'm the same way as Travis mostly. I don't like to use guides. I think we might have discussed this even on air when you were talking about your guidings. And I said I don't really use guides, but it's great if they're out there for people that do want them. I will say there was definitely a period of time in game design where I definitely had to use guides, because frankly, I don't think the designers were that fair. And I'm talking about, your Castlevania 2s, your various saga games from Square Enix, where it's like, what am I even supposed to do? There was a period of time where I think game design was opaque enough that sometimes you needed a strategy guide. In fact, there were always rumors they built it this way because they wanted to force you to buy the strategy guide, when it was more of a big deal. We didn't quite have the internet the way we did. I know I'm old. I'm seasoned, right?
Seasoned, yes. Thank you.
So I have used them in the past like that. To be honest, I always feel for folks like Twitch streamers, right? Are going out there, and sometimes the community is just like, oh, don't miss this thing. That's a fake wall. And it's like,
right.
That would bother me. I mean, that would shut up. Because I'm an explorer type, right? If you go to game design school, they've got the various types of player that you're going to be, and some of that's true and some of it's not, and some of that's psychology. But I'm an explorer type. I like to see what's over the next bend. That's my favorite part of Elden Ring.
Yep.
So I would never use it for something like that. But I will say in the same breath, it's also the reason why I fall off these things maybe a little bit more than some other people. Like I sent you a message, Ames, yesterday because we were talking about various games in DM.
Yep.
And I said, look, I've played Elden Ring for 35 hours.
Yep.
I've gotten to I've beaten 2 areas, give or take. And I know there's 200 hours more stuff, but I sit there and say, I feel like I get the structure here. Yeah, there'll be new, singing monsters or various things around. and you tell me that there's cool stuff to see, and that's fine. But I've played it 35 hours. I want to go play Triangle Strategy. I want to play Destiny, whatever.
Yep.
I feel like I got Elden Ring. And there might be more cool stuff. And maybe if I had a little bit more understanding of what that was or how to trigger it, like that's the kind of thing that maybe somebody could use to just push them over the edge on that. Because after the second area, it's kind of like all right, where do I go now? What do I do? And I just wasn't invested enough at that point in time. I know it's sacrilege. I wasn't invested enough in that point in time to push through that, to be like, well, okay, what am I going to do? So I can see people using it for that reason, the kind of guideposts a little bit less opaque than the creators of Elden Ring who want that opacity, but maybe I'm not that comfortable with it. So it's essentially like self-selecting a little bit of a tutorial or a little bit of a UI. I know that was big in the discussions in the last week or so, to just kind of do what the creators didn't want. And yeah, technically that's not the game they built, but if it can get you to a place where you're getting more utility out of it, who am I to say, right? But I do agree with you that there are plenty of people that do that. What I really hate is the people that do that kind of thing and then like complain about it. Oh, there was no mysteries there. The bosses were too easy.
Oh my God, dude. I see that all the time.
Yeah.
It's so weird, man. And what's weird is like, I know how popular guides are because I've made them. And this is like another area where like I tend to make content I would never use. Like I work on guides, I make YouTube shows, like all things that are like, if you're like, Travis, what are you doing with your free time? I'd be like, not those things, like for sure, but they're super popular. People really, really like to have those guides. And, I get it. There's a certain comfort to it, but, I don't know. I feel like those people should try to play without a guide for just a little bit because I feel like they don't know what they're missing out on. Some of them grew up in this age where you just like had the answer online and you could always look it up. And I feel like if they could just try once to just like really go in blind, I feel like they'd love it. And I'm sure Ains, you can speak to this as somebody who does reviews on occasion. The feeling of I don't want to call it like superiority, but it's super gratifying when like a game isn't out yet and there's no way to use a guide.
Elden Ring was like that when I was reviewing it. Like I had no idea what the hell I was doing.
And then you see the reviewers that are where the boys are separated from the men because the other reviewers cannot finish the game because there's no guides, and you're just like I'm Goku. I've been training in 10 times gravity. Like I'm ready to do this thing. So
you're not wrong, man.
I love.
You're not wrong. And then you read a review where it's like, you didn't finish the game. I know you didn't finish the game. Like,
Elden Ring's an interesting example because, and Ains, you're not guilty of this, but there is a little bit of cultism out there. If you say like anything, if people on Twitter just heard the paragraph that I gave and said, I've seen what I need to see out of Elden Ring, that there's a certain amount of hellfire that comes with that now. And so it's an interesting kind of zeitgeist for that specific game. And I think of what I've said. I've gone out there and said, I like Elden Ring. I just don't adore it. And that's its own kind of offense to some. It's like, okay,
apparently, I still find it insane that people think that Elden Ring is for everyone. Like I play the game and I'm like, oh, this is like, I'm surprised they've marketed it so well, considering what it is.
You want to talk about the story? To me, the story is those numbers. I'm like, it ain't that different from the Souls games. My God,
I don't understand how they did it. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. Does George R.R. just pull that kind of weight? I don't know.
that's what made the difference, though.
A lot of comments on guides and good comments. We have one from Game Forte, if I can find it. Gaming Forte, our buddy. Good to see you, Forte. So he runs a GameStop and basically said when I ask people at work, they say they buy and use guides. help get them through the game more efficiently. They like to move game to game without being bogged down, and I certainly get that. And our brother AO said the same thing. He said, just want to get through a game efficiently. I completely get it and understand it. And Fat Boy says the same thing. He says, I hate secret achievements. What am I, a chuffing mind reader?
You can click
I get
secret achievements mostly. I don't know if you can on the Xbox. You definitely can on the PlayStation.
You can on
see what
PlayStation.
a secret is.
Yeah, you can. So, I just thought that was an interesting point, because Elden Ring seems to have brought that to my mind again, because it is one of those games where there's so much to miss. Even if you look up a guide right now, because on the as I was thinking about this conversation, I've looked up some things and stuff about quests I missed now after 2 playthroughs, and I'm like, oh, I would have never figured that out. Like, it just wouldn't have figured it out.
It likes to ding you for like taking too much time. Like there's little things in these various quests. They're cool, but
they're hidden quests.
It's certainly,
but it's okay to miss stuff. I feel like that's part of it too.
Yes,
you have to get comfortable in Elden Ring, where it's like you think about it, and if you're a completionist, you're like, man, it's lucky I saw that cave because it was kind of hidden behind this tree. If I hadn't seen that, I wouldn't have done this thing. And to me, you have to come out of that cave or anywhere else you're playing in a game like Elden Ring and get comfortable with, there's no way I'm going to see all those. There's no way I'm going to press against all the walls. There's no way when an NPC kind of looks like the tree trunk and you rode past him 4 times. Yeah, you have to get comfortable with that. And to me, that can work to make it feel like a forever world, right? Obviously, there's only a certain amount of resources in there, which is a huge amount in a game like Elden Ring. But you get used to skipping those things and missing them. That's when you can get to that comfort level. I think you're going to enjoy yourself a lot more.
Yeah,
if
I think being
okay
about
it, then it's not going to work for you.
Yeah, being okay with not having a perfect playthrough, I think, is important. And then
the
other thing,
especially
is,
in this game,
with games like Elden Ring, it does seem weird. Like if you're trying to do every quest, like to me, that's like you're trying to drink the river, right? Like you gotta kind of just dip in and get scoops of water when you need it. You can't just expect to drink the whole thing. I think that is another conversation of like the people who are following the guides, maybe they're getting through the game more efficiently. I don't know how much of the game they're actually getting to enjoy, but they are trying to consume all of the content in a short period of time. And I don't know if it's the intended experience, especially with a game like Elden Ring, where like it's so much about you kind of like being caught off guard and stuff. And also, the game already has a guide in the form of player comments on the floor. Like, I feel like I get spoiled by player comments a lot. Like there'll be something secret in the next room, and I'll click on it, and I'll be like, I kind of wish I didn't know that. But that's how I find stuff out. Like I found out about the thing that Dan was subtweeting about in Elden Ring this week was about the wolf quest. And I figured that out just because of player comments. Like I was in an area and it was like try emote, and I was like, oh, it's that finger snap thing. And I did it, and I figured out that quest line. So I figured
that out on my second playthrough. There's so much more that I figured out on my second playthrough and found. Like I must have seen several more areas, more NPC quests, and there's still plenty that I didn't figure out. So
every time it gives me a new menu item in a place I felt I could have completely skipped, I'm like, geez.
Yeah, dude, that happens a lot.
All the time.
Oh, man.
I was telling Travis that, not to keep on Elden Ring, but I was telling Travis that I rolled credits this week on my second playthrough, and then I went and beat the final demigod, the red-haired long sword chick everyone's talking about in the artwork and stuff. She's like on the cover of the game and all that. I beat all the demigods, 200 hours in the game now, over 200 hours, right? And I'm about to turn it off because I'm like, I can finally play other games. And I ride my horse across this open area in the late game, and under a rock, like over here, I see a teleporter with blood on it. And I was like, I've never seen that before. Like, what is that? I go through it. It's an entirely new area of the game I've never seen before again. And I was like, I swear to God, Miyazaki is coding this game in real time. Like, it just never ends. It just never ends. Like, it's unbelievable. So,
hey, I get it.
But anyway, I thought that was an interesting viewpoint for this week to start on. So let me get the super chat real quick from Mr. Luke Lore over at the Xbox Expansion Pass. $2 super chat. As always, Joe sucks. I mean, I think we're all in agreement here, Luke. It's fine. Sure. Yeah, I mean, sure. I DM Ains for ER help. He does. That's fine. I love it. Lots of people are, like I said, all good. And Travis is cool. There you go. Thank you, Luke.
Just Ains in his DMs answering Elden Ring questions all
constantly.
I have done that. I've asked Ains like something, not to like cheat. I like try to get him to not spoil things for me, but I'm like, hey, just Random question.
Well, those are the best kinds of guides, right? Like back in the day, you used to have like here's clue 1, here's clue 2. Maybe you had like a little red thing that was using that, the fake codes that you used to have in the kids' books. I like that. If I can get some notion of, I just need a little, like just a little, that can be helpful. But the problem is if you're searching for something, you almost come at it from
find it real
bottom
fast.
up. Yeah. So no,
we're too efficient with our search results.
I don't love them, but there's a lot of cool ones. I remember King's Quest 6.
Let's go.
I remember King's Quest
Those
6.
are tough.
I think I was having difficulty with, and the way that they were doing those strategy guides back then was they were writing them as narratives, as if the author had traveled to Daventry and interviewed the people with respect to the various quests that they were on. And then it was kind of like baked in what you should be thinking about with those. And I like that. But, I was a nerd kid. What can I say?
King's Quest are classics.
Yeah.
We're all nerds here. We're in safe haven here. It's fine. All right. So what else we've been playing, guys? I finally got over to Horizon, which I've been talking about. And very much looking forward to. And I'm going to say something controversial just to kick us off here.
Wouldn't be Bitcast without a little bit of controversy.
And for context, Rick, as you said, likes Elden Ring, but you correct me if I'm wrong. You love Forbidden West.
Yeah, I think Forbidden West is going to wind up higher in my estimation at the end. I'm going to come back to Elden Ring. I'm giving it like a pause.
Sure.
But I think Forbidden West is going to wind up higher in my estimation. At the end of the day, and you're going to tell me why I am a wrong-headed loser.
No. Because one thing that really drives me crazy, and I tweeted about this week, is speaking definitively about games that you haven't experienced. Like I don't enjoy people who speak definitively about games that they've only experienced like a tiny portion of. So I'm not going to make any definitive comments about Forbidden West because one, I love Horizon. I think I'm going to love this game. But it does feel so to give you context, I'm maybe 4 to 5 hours in. I got past the title roll screen, right? All that whole tutorial, got to the credit roll, and now I'm in the next area after that and exploring. The one thing, so first of all, Aloy talks too much. You guys already covered this. We talked about it a few weeks ago.
She thinks you're a moron.
She really does.
You set me up perfectly because the controversial thing I was going to say, and maybe it's not even controversial, but I'm coming off of 200 hours of Elden Ring, right? Elden Ring assumes players are intelligent and assumes you're going to work things out. Horizon feels like the polar opposite, where the game makes me think the game assumes that I'm stupid. And it just annoys me. Like, I'm literally walking and, everything's marked. It'll show you, if you have the icons. I have Explorer mode on because I want less clutter. We've talked about that.
Highly recommended Explorer mode. Yep.
Yeah. So I have that on because that's how I prefer to play. But it's like, it's clear you can see something up the mountain right here, right? Yep. So I start climbing and Aloy's like, oh, looks like there might be something up there. I should go explore there. And I'm like, shut up. Like, I'm not 4 years old. Like, I know what I'm doing.
How often it's late. Right. So I remember, you've got a box up on a ledge. No spoilers. There's boxes in this game. There's a box up on a ledge. You start pushing it. You're figuring out the puzzle. She said, I wonder if that box could be of any help. I'm like, Jesus, Aloy, come on.
Dude.
Yes.
And the fact that you're playing it post nerf aims, like when I was playing the game, that was why I complained about it. That whole show that weekend where I was playing a couple weeks ago.
True.
I came out, I was just like, dude,
defend this. I cannot defend it.
The fact that I was in settings looking to see if there was a way to make her talk less and there wasn't is like, and I wasn't the only one. I think, Rick, you said you did the exact same thing.
My daughter can vouch for me here. I go, I wonder if there's a, skip her tutorial messages, because you'll go into a cave and there'll be a puzzle, like a little Tomb Raider type puzzle.
It's what I did last night.
She'll direct you to the 3 things you need to look at before you've gotten all the way into the cave.
Yep.
And it's like, shit.
It happened to me last night. And again, I'm moving boxes to climb up a ladder, which again, don't get me I'm playing another PlayStation game where I'm moving boxes to climb a ladder. Like, there's got to be better design that we can do here. There's
a few boxes in this game.
But then second of all, the stuff she says half the time is either late or not even contextual. Like, I'm fighting the burrowers, are they? At the beginning?
Yeah, burrowers.
Yeah, so
place to the watchers.
Yes, thank you. So I'm hiding, right, for a stealth attack. And I hit the stealth attack, and I'm literally mid shoving my spear into it, and she's like, "Looks like there's could be something up over there," and I'm like, "What?" I'm like, this doesn't like. What are you talking about right now? This is so.
I can't defend this. This is 100% accurate. It is the biggest problem with the game. There's other smaller problems. They got some animation issues with their climbing and things like that.
Yes, I've noticed that.
But Ains is exactly right on this. It is absolutely terrible. It is also the kind of thing that I believe you could flag on the dialogue tree and get out of there in 3 or 6 months,
or just make it a
Yeah.
toggle. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I'm gonna wait for that patch because I get annoyed by small things and they ruin the game for me. And that was one where it was just like it was scratching at me for so long. I was like, I have to step away from this game. But
Well, it feels like
post the patch, I'll play the game again.
It feels like they tried to make it like more like Uncharted, because like half of this game so far, I'm climbing and jumping on things, and she's just talking the whole time, and I'm like, you're not Nathan Drake. Like when I play Uncharted, I know Nathan Drake is a character. I love him. I love the Uncharted games. But I know what I'm getting. And I'm like, why am I playing Horizon that feels like an Uncharted game right now? Like I don't know why they went this direction.
Different direction with this one in terms of tone and genre. I mean, you're going to have a buddy with you a lot. You saw that in the tutorial.
Yes.
They want to bounce dialogue off of those kinds of things. There's collections and base elements that are very Mass Effect-y. In my opinion, the way that they're going to structure what you're doing in terms of overall goals, and I'll leave it at that.
No social links, though.
Yeah, no.
How Mass Effect-y can it be, really?
Yeah,
No.
I don't think there's social, but there's maybe on the edges. Yeah, I will also say this though. Remember, they don't trust you to play a video game. So you, in 5 hours in, are still in the tutorial.
Yes, I've heard.
Tutorials. There's the dungeon tutorial, which is awful.
Yes,
and that's
it really
first,
is.
I don't know.
Terrible start to the game.
Yeah,
And
I
then-
didn't enjoy it at all.
No, it's awful. I want folks to understand. I love this game, but that doesn't mean we have to ignore the stuff that is awful.
Yeah.
So that opening area is awful, and then that next area
That's what
is essentially the tutorial. It's the White Orchard. We talked about that.
Yeah, the White Orchard. Yeah.
How does an open world work? But very handholdy. It does get less handholdy, and
Good.
more agency is given to you as you break out of that area.
Good. I've heard that as well.
And I will agree, like the first 10 hours of the game are like by far the worst part of it. I'd be willing to bet that like if there's a player attrition on that game, it'll be during that part, because I almost fell off a few times, and luckily I pushed past it. And once you get into the proper Forbidden West area, the game does get a lot better. She never stops patronizing you with dialogue. That's sort of why I ultimately was like, Jesus. But I will say, like, the handholdy intro and the fact that she never stops talking are the worst parts of the game, and I think that's a pretty big accomplishment if they're the worst parts of the game, because everything else is fantastic, especially
fabulous.
Yeah,
and one of the things you'll learn, and not to spoil it, I mentioned this when we talked about it earlier, is that White Orchard area is establishing the new direction that they're going to go with side quests, how they're going to feed into each other, how that all works together in a much more what I characterize usually as Witcher format, where they're all kind of telling you various pieces about the geography, the characters in it, and they're interacting with each other. So it's not just there. You need to go find my prayer beads. I'm sitting on a mountain like all the time. And that to me was really, I didn't love how slowly they were taking the intro, but by the time that I got to like the proof of concept, I believed in the world that they were about to show me, because I mean, like, it's noteworthy that you're not in the Forbidden West yet. Like, and that's really when the game starts. And so all that stuff is them holding your hand. And I think they do it too much. I really, really do. But they also kind of show, to me, who was a person that liked but didn't love Zero Dawn, this is like a 7 to me out of 10, that original game, that this becomes a 9 because you're paying much more close attention to your world building and building something interesting at all times. And I think that's why it works so much better. But yeah, it is really like 10 hours. Travis is right. Before they're like, okay,
I've heard.
I guess you understand how this works. I guess we're going to let you out.
Yeah, I've been talking to Bomber, who's in the chat. He's played a lot of it too, and we were joking yesterday about it. And a lot of the comments are agreeing with you guys as well. Yeah, I've just got to push through. I said that yesterday, and I will. I mean, like I said, I love Horizon. I know everyone tells me it gets better. The writing so far is I'm not enjoying either. I hear the story gets wild in the late game, but
absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I heard it's
ready.
Yeah, I heard it's just bonkers off the wall. So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously it's gorgeous. Obviously it's fun to play right now. But yesterday I was just like, okay, this is. I actually turned it off at one point. Went back to Gran Turismo, just because I was
Gran
like,
Turismo.
yeah, Gran Turismo
Surprising
we
how
can
much I
talk
love
about
Gran
too.
Turismo.
By the way, Mr. Rodriguez, where's that sexy guy? 7 out of 10 show. hope you're having fun with the family, Dan. Let me get the super chat real quick from Mr. Gecko Gamer. He's back. €5 super chat. Might this be a case where studios within publishers share so much info with each other that all of their games converge to themselves, similar to Ubisoft?
Horizon, you mean? Like from PlayStation pollination?
Yes, yeah, I think that's what he's referring to. And I talked with Elu, who's normally here with us in the chat yesterday about this. To me, and I've said this before, and I don't necessarily mean this as a slight, but I do feel some of the PlayStation titles are first-party titles, obviously, are a little templatey. Like you know when you're playing a PlayStation first-party title, there are a lot of similar aspects that are shared across them. And I think to Gecko's probably point here, Horizon definitely is an example of that. Like I said, I mean, it feels like I'm playing an Uncharted game right now. It's like Uncharted Forbidden West, at least at this point in the game. So yeah, I definitely feel that happens to a degree.
I actually don't know if it's studios sharing information with each other. I think it's more developers wanting to chase success, especially things that they feel like, games that they liked and that sort of thing they want to incorporate. And I've said this before on the show, but development doesn't happen in a vacuum. You're kind of always looking at what's available to you. And I think that means that lots of games develop best practice. And if they're similar types of games, then, those games are going to kind of look similar. And I don't know if it's them like sharing secrets and being like, oh, here's the code that we wrote for this game. Now just, pop that in and throw a Last of Us skin on it or whatever.
I don't know about share so much info or code, but I mean, there's certainly a notion of this is what pleased the board person. This is what pleased the person that's looking.
That's what I think it mostly is. Yeah.
This is the question I had with Microsoft. There is a concern. I don't know whether it's legitimate or not because we haven't run it enough time for Microsoft, but there is a concern that if this is what Phil likes or the rest of the gaming division likes, that there can be kind of a vanilla, this is what happens. This is what I personally feel happens a little bit with like the MCU. This is the direction that Kevin likes. This is the direction that works for the board, whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you like that flavor, but that condensing of amount of flavors available to you can happen. The two games that I feel are the most similar recently from Sony are Days Gone and Ghost of Tsushima. The way that their maps work, the way that their resource collection works and their menus and overall flow. Every minute I was playing Ghost of Tsushima, I'm like, wow, this is a very similar kind of work, obviously between swords and motorcycles and things like that. But I could really feel it there. I do think, Ains, I agree with you that, hey, you're going to do a third person open world action adventure. There's certain things that are going to work and certain things that aren't.
Yeah.
Horizon isn't going to ultimately feel like Uncharted to you anymore. Than, I mean, it's open world. And Horizon does a lot of cool stuff with kind of hunting, and they've kind of shorn up the UI for all the ways that you're going to grow your weapons and various things that were in the first game, but that to me give Horizon life, which is that, okay, I'm going to do these various things and I'm going to find this area and then I'm going to have to make sure that I cut off this particular part. So it's got that little bit of monster hunter element into it, combined with all the rest of this stuff and first in class world building. And you haven't seen that yet. So
I'm excited to see that.
I don't blame you for that. But I do think there is a legitimate concern of when everybody's under the same umbrella, the guys with the purse strings are going to be the ones that you want to get to say yes to you. They know what happened to Ben. They know that, Days Gone 2 was turned down. They do know enough about that. And I think that I'm sure Sucker Punch was enthused about Ghost of Tsushima, but the fact that it lined up with what Sony likes to do, I'm sure
certainly didn't hurt. Yeah.
Didn't hurt at all. Right.
Yep.
So, I honestly think that's why all Ubisoft games are the same, is because they've found success with that type of game and they're just sort of chasing success. It's like,
I mean, I call it Ubi game, and I'm guilty. People don't like me when I go out and say, look, I like Ubi game. I like every flavor they give to me. It's a very calming thing to just go check off those things. I enjoy that experience. And no, I don't have to think about it too much, but do I put it on the Pantheon games? Not usually. Yeah. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is the sole exception to me because I thought it worked best in that format. But yeah, I mean, I go make money. That doesn't bother me, but I would like to see more variety, especially out of
mass market appeal.
And clearly people to your point, aren't objectively disliking it, right? I mean,
the
Ubisoft,
social media of the world is like Ubisoft is the worst. They only make the one game, but they're still in the top 10.
Valhalla's made $1 billion, so
Yep.
obviously there's people enjoying it, right? I mean, it doesn't
Yep.
matter what Twitter
It's
says.
not any different than me buying, when I did this, when you buy Madden every year because you enjoy the football, you do it in the fall. It's like, Assassin's Creed.
Call of Duty's the same way.
It's got a new flavor.
Yeah.
Fine.
It's comfort food.
It is, and you can't just watch art house films, right? Sometimes you just got to watch a crummy action movie,
like a Fast and Furious, just crummy garbage
you?
action movie.
How dare you? How dare you? But other movies that aren't Fast and Furious that don't have incredible storylines and Oscar-worthy acting.
Okay. So we're talking about different movies altogether then.
Yeah. Well, you haven't seen Fast and Furious in like a decade, so maybe you should shut your mouth.
This is true.
I think we had this conversation. I told you the last one I saw was Tokyo Drift. So it's
there you go. That's
me
that's
too.
Where Ames
Me
did
too.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you guys are both old and don't know what you're talking about. I think is what we've taken from this.
You've chosen seasoned. But yeah.
Seasoned, right.
Yes,
right.
yes, thank you. All right, guys. So what else have we been playing? I know Rick. So
I got a gem. I don't know if you guys know this one. Maybe you do. I've got a gem that I'm absolutely adoring called RPG Time: The Legend of Wright. Anything?
No clue.
This is great.
I've seen that in the Xbox store. I don't know what it is.
Okay. So Xbox game came out, I don't know, Thursday, maybe. The premise of this game is that you are essentially after class in an elementary school, and your buddy has been making an RPG. And he makes it all with things that he created, little puppets on straws. When he voices a character, he puts on a headband. It's all in the vein of drawn sketches in his notebook that you're moving around and doing various things. But it's absolutely imaginative. It's crazy. You're walking through a cave. You wind up in a tank. That tank winds up in a digital world. You go through a Zelda-esque experience. You pop out. Then you have Rock'em Sock'em robots against the boss, all while this kid is changing the rules at all times and drawing new things in the cave and erasing them. Super, super, super imaginative and fantastic. I mean, it's fantastic. It's novel. It's exactly what I'm looking for in an experience. It's maybe not the gamiest of games. It's for the most part working through mini games and exploring things on pages of notebooks. But you guys should look up some screenshots of this, or even
I'm doing it right now because it sounds familiar. Like I've seen a trailer of it.
I believe it's been worked on since like 2013 or something. Like it just took a lot of time for a small team. But came out this week. Very, very goofy, but sweetly goofy. And very, very imaginative. I think the kid has cardboard buttons he puts on to explain what your action button does during this section or what have you. The buildings that you go in an RPG town are Post-it notes. Then the Post-it notes come off to show the interior and then go back on when you leave. All this goofy stuff.
This looks awesome.
Very, very cool.
I now own this game.
The trailer of it right now.
And I'm like,
game?
Awesome. Since Hogue started talking, I now own this game, RPG.
It is great. Super, super imaginative. You'll love it the whole time.
I'm in, man. I'm in. That looks awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. How much is it?
I think it's $30.
I just bought it. Yeah. $29.99, guys.
Cool. All right. Well, there you go, guys. There's a game recommendation I didn't expect today.
People online will be like, "Why isn't this on Game Pass or whatever?" It really is worth it. It's really imaginative, in a way that I like to support. I mean,
cool.
And it looks cool the whole time. I mean, you're talking about like the old sketches that kind of move around while they're stationary, and working through all those areas. All the music in the game is from his other favorite fake games that he plays on an MP3 player next to where you are to be evocative of whatever thing you're facing. It's great.
That's awesome. So it's called anyone listening, it's called RPG Time: The Legend of Wright. Wright is in the name. WRIGHT.
Right, like Phoenix Wright.
Yeah. So check it out. That does look cool. Like I said, I was watching the trailer. It looks really neat. So I'll have to check that out.
Very, very cool.
Very cool.
So that's my gem. The other thing I'm playing, I'm 25 hours deep in Triangle Strategy.
Yeah. So you still high on it?
Yep. No, it's gonna be on my top 10.
Nice.
It's exactly where I live. It's human political strategy. People are going to complain, and rightly so, about the level of cutscenes here. It's half cutscene, half tactics game. But you can control it, much like I wind up controlling an open world game where you go and you putz around a little bit, and then you decide I'm going to do main story sequences. You're going to have to build up the levels of your team, just like a Final Fantasy Tactics or an Over Battle or something like that. So you have the ability to do mock mental battles, and so you just kind of, for me, I sprinkle them in. I do 2 long cutscenes, and then I say, all right, I'm going to have to do a couple of these anyway. I'm going to do this one here, and then I'm going to watch another couple cutscenes. I'm going to do this one here, and then I'm going to do the main fight. It starts off. You might think it's too easy. It's not going to do a lot of pushback for a long time. It kicked my butt this weekend. Kicked my butt, and I liked it. Liked it the whole time. Give me some pushback.
No, I know it hugs into it.
That. You can clip that.
Oh, I like that. I like a little challenge.
Give me some
kicked
pushback.
My butt, and I liked it. Jeff.
Yeah, it beat me. Well, it's simpler. It's streamlined. You're not changing jobs like a Final Fantasy Tactics, and you're not protecting your people's lives like a Fire Emblem. So it's significantly more streamlined in the decisions that you're making, because okay, if this person dies, I would have preferred to get more experience out of this for them, because you get experience whenever you do something, but it's not the end of the world. It also means that the design of the fights can be a little bit more traumatic from the designers. They can set up the challenge so that it's essentially, they know if you're coming out of this, you're coming out of this with 2 people, and you're trying to fight off an enormous force in very, very cool ways. Behind all that, the politics is good. The nation states operating against each other. The characters are good. You may have seen me on Twitter arguing that they weren't dull. I believe IGN called them a very dull cast, Travis. So I blame you for all the sins of your
Naturally, I mean, Travis made the game, if you didn't know that.
For sure, yeah. People will tweet me about how I need to fix it.
I would recommend, Trav.
Yeah, cool.
So I went out and said they're not dull. What they are is the Star Trek The Next Generation crew, right? They are super professional, very competent, mature, not overly emotional and not overly dramatic, even though they're in horrible situations throughout. They're on the run for huge periods of time. And to me, that works. In fact, there's a number of relationships there that I don't know that I've seen, or at least not often, in video games, a kind of sweetly conveyed betrothal and working through different kingdoms, talking to each other, and various other people that would have problems from a kind of adult professional perspective that there aren't easy answers for, rather than I'm going to withhold this information from you and we're going to cry about it, or all these various things, which are all still legitimate ways to tell a story. And God knows Ains Horizon has a lot of very melodramatic stuff. So that's waiting for you. But Triangle Strategy isn't dull. It's just different. And I think it's different in a very, very cool way.
So I've heard a lot of good things, see people, and Eric points out that anyone interested in it, there's a demo that gives you the first 3 chapters for free, and progress in that demo transfers to the full game. So really, no excuse.
Give you a feel for that ratio I'm talking about. That's not going to change. If that completely does not work for you in those 3 chapter demo, probably not for you.
Gotcha. Okay. It sounds like one I'm definitely want to check out once I have time. I'm still catching up.
Time.
It's always
the caveat to end all caveats.
I know. But hey, I've got Horizon to get through. I got to get through this 18-hour tutorial apparently before I can start enjoying that game. And I've got a lot of Gran Turismo to play.
I don't know that I hated the first open world area as much as you did. So I mean, we'll take it with a grain of salt. So
well, I had an instance. I don't want to harp on it, but I had an instance yesterday. I showed a clip to some of the guys, and I was like, "What is happening here?" So I'm riding a mount, and I'm getting attacked. Right, so I'm running away, and I get this little hill, and I'm talking about like like that on the screen, like a little. My mount just stopped. Like it wouldn't move, and like Aloy's kicking her leg, and nothing's happening. And I'm trying to go around, and Bomber's like, yeah, there's a lot of kind of like small little invisible walls that you can't go through in various little spots like that. And I'm like, well, this is driving me nuts. I'm in the middle of the open, like I wasn't in front of a wall or anything, and I'm like, this is just killing me right now. It's killing me. So anyway,
yeah. Hey. I wish you better times ahead, Ains. Some of that
it does get better. I can vouch for Hogue.
I will stick with it. All right, Travis, you said you're starting a new review tomorrow, which I'm sure you can't talk about yet, but
I can.
You can. Anything else that you're going to be playing?
I've been playing a ton of Destiny. For those of you who don't know, last weekend the raid happened. I think I talked about it on the show for a little bit. Last weekend is all blur.
You were explaining your tiredness, yes.
Yes. So we beat the raid as a community. It was very good. I completed the end game content, and then early last week I slapped my review score, my final review on Destiny: The Witch Queen. So gave it an 8 out of 10, which at IGN means it's great. Great game. Stand by that for sure. It also represents a pretty big milestone for me, which is Destiny finally getting out of the 6 and 7s that I have afforded it for many years. It is now reached an 8 for me. It's definitely the best Destiny has been since 7 years ago when it started. So Hogue, I know you're playing it. Hopefully you agree with that. But the campaign is fantastic. They really hit it out of the park with so many things they did in that game.
I love my glaive. I don't know. It's
it's great. It's great.
Cool.
They're great. Yeah, super cool idea. And you can read my review on IGN.com and watch the video on YouTube, which has about a third of the content because my review is like 3,000 words, and I can't make that a 50-minute review video. But it's quite good. I've also been playing Elden Ring. I know everyone in the world is playing Elden Ring. I got to it late, but I'm probably farther than you. I'm blowing through the game. Like I've probably killed like 100 bosses, and I haven't done any main quests at all. I'm like in the end game areas, and I haven't done anything. So
I looked you up, Travis. You already have 70 hours in it, so bravo, sir.
I have 70 hours in the game. I'm catching up, and I'm super high level. I think I'm over level 100, and I haven't killed any of the main bosses. Or anytime I see a grace leading me somewhere, I'm like, nope, and I go the other way, and I look for other stuff to do. So I'm really taking my time with it. But eventually, I'm gonna have to go and fight some of these demigods everybody's talking about. So I'll get to that eventually.
Anti-authoritarianism even to waypoint directions.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't like authority. I don't like people telling me what to do. So I'll turn away. But yeah, I'm having a ton of fun. And then tomorrow I'm gonna have to put Elden Ring down again. And I haven't played Destiny as much, but I'm gonna have to put it down. I'm starting a review of Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, which is the new Borderlands game. I'm covering that for IGN. So luckily they're giving that to me about 2 weeks early. So I'm going to be able to run through it. It's like a 30-hour game, 50 if you do all the side quests. So should be a lot of fun. And I won't be able to talk about it until the review's live, but I can say I'm reviewing it and yeah, hopefully it'll be good. You never know with these games. So we'll see. But I'm a huge Borderlands fan. So
I think Borderlands to me has kind of a high-ish floor. It's
for sure.
You know what you're getting.
For sure. Yeah. I hope so. Yeah. I was one of those guys who Borderlands 3 felt to me like a game that came out in the wrong era. Like just felt a little outdated given the fact that they sort of invented looter shooter. And then in my opinion, haven't really, at least with Borderlands 3, they didn't really grow with where kind of the industry evolved to.
Yeah, it felt like a throwback.
It felt like a throwback. Yeah. And so I'm hoping that they do more with this. I really like the Tiny Tina DLC for Borderlands 2. I thought that was a brilliant idea. So the fact that it's getting a spin-off is fantastic. I'm really excited for it. But I'm going to start that tomorrow, and it's probably going to consume my life until the game comes out. So that's what I'll be busy doing. And Elden Ring will have to wait. My 70-hour playthrough will have to be put on hold for a little bit. So very excited.
That's cool. Yeah. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on that too. I'm looking forward to it. I hope I'm looking forward to like a Borderlands experience that has a few deeper RPG mechanics, because supposedly this has more builds and more kind of fantasy stuff to do, which
as it ought to, being a D&D kind of play on things. Bunkers and Badasses is their version of it. But yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. Also, oh no, that went out of my brain. I had another comment and it's gone now.
I wish for from that game out of the trailers is I wish that they had dug a little bit more into fantasy than the guns looking so much like the guns.
Yeah.
And that's really just an art thing. And I'm sure Borderlands will still be Borderlands. But when I heard about the project, I was like, oh, that'll be cool to see the fantasy versions of Borderlands. And it's like, it's mostly Borderlands.
They got to keep the spirit of it. Yeah, I don't think. But yeah, it is a shooter, so take that what you will. But yeah, I'm pretty excited by it. I've got they're giving me a bunch of codes, so I'm gonna be running through it in co-op, which in my opinion is the way it's meant to be played. So that should be fun times.
Cool. Another super chat to get to. Mr. Gecko Gamer is back again. Another €5 super chat. He says, "I'm in Horizon Zero Dawn and just went out the tutorial area, Jesus, and feel slightly overwhelmed. Any tips?"
Do you mean Zero Dawn or do you mean Forbidden West?
He's got to mean Forbidden West, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking he probably does mean, because I don't really remember a tutorial area in Zero Dawn.
There's
the whole Mother's Cradle is the tutorial area in Zero Dawn, right?
Yeah, it's that intro area where you're, and then they'd flash back with your tribe member. But yeah, I'm assuming you mean Forbidden West, and I can't answer, so it might be better, Rick, if you have any comments.
Well, to me, I can only tell you what I do, right? So the very first thing I do when they give me the keys to the car is I go and I look through the various things that I can upgrade and see what I can see in terms of where animals are, and pick a few to get a feel for the area. And then the other thing that you need to know is that they're going to be putting quests in virtually everything that's going to be labeled as a town or a village or some name that you don't recognize. So if you go out and you zoom out all the way on your map, you'll see various areas that are very likely to have more content for you. And then, of course, the main quest is going to be highlighted.
Yeah, the main quest. So, by the way, not to interrupt you, Rick, but he actually just said again, Zero Dawn. He means Zero Dawn.
Okay. Right. Well, I mean, Zero Dawn, I think depending on which version you have, you can either start trekking up to the Banuk and getting a little bit more levels there, or you can begin the long march to Meridian. Zero Dawn is not as it doesn't have as much stuff just out there in the wild as Forbidden West. So you don't have to worry about it as much.
Yeah. I'd say do the hunter challenges. That was my favorite part of the game, and I sort of beelined to those. Yeah, I'd say do the hunter challenges. I started Zero Dawn so many times. I got so sick of that first one and timing like the logs. I got so sick of that first hunter challenge. So doing the hunter challenge is also super like beneficial. Like you get some really good stuff running those. So that's my recommendation is forsake the main story quest and just do the hunter challenges until you get a really good feel for the game and get some good equipment. Yeah, enjoy Pre-Meridian for sure. Yeah,
there you go. The sad thing is I platinumed that game and I don't remember. I platinumed when it came out, so it's 5 years old now. Don't remember a whole lot about it.
Last time I played the game, it wasn't out yet because I reviewed it. So I beat the entire Zero Dawn, and I haven't played it since. I haven't played it since the game came out.
Did you ever wind up playing Frozen Wilds?
I reviewed that too, so I actually did go back to play the expansion. But I think for that one they gave us like a pre-save game and made us play off of that. So
even on their main menu, I think you can choose like I want to play the Frozen Wilds. So I think they have it set up for that.
I think they made us just play the Frozen Wilds, so it was sort of the same thing. Like I played it before it was out, and then by the time it was out, I was like, all right, it's gone. Like I'm on to other stuff. So
all I can say is Forbidden West grabbed me a lot more than that game.
Okay. All right.
So far, I feel the opposite, to be honest. But to me, the reason was because for Zero Dawn to me was totally new. I was like, oh, I haven't seen a game like this. And Forbidden West, my thinking was like, all right, it's just more Zero Dawn. That was my initial thought. It didn't like grab me, but to our point earlier, Hogue, it does get better once you get past the tutorial and stuff. It stops feeling so much like a more Zero Dawn again, and feels like they're trying some new stuff, which is cool.
Cool.
Wacky stuff, Ains. Get ready.
Yeah, I've heard. I'm excited. All right, before we get to our main topic, we're going to talk about Overwatch 2 and Blizzard's plan there. But we've got a fabulous super chat from Mr. Mariano.
I saw that just now.
He said he just wants to let the Bitcast know that you don't have the right. Oh, you don't have the right. All the more you don't have the right. Oh, you don't have the right. And if you're wondering right now what the hell is Papa saying here, it is a ongoing joke within the Elden Ring community, where you get to a place that like a door you can't open or an area you can't access, and someone has left a message in front of it saying this: you don't have the right. You don't have the right.
So I've not looked on anything online about Elden Ring, but just my assumption of this is that they're trying to make it like a song, right? And I've been singing the song every time I see it. I don't know what you guys, what kind of tune you give the song. Does anybody want to sing their version of "You Don't Have the Right" written by Miyazaki?
Sure not.
This is where I really don't.
Do you sing it to yourself though, or am I crazy? Because I sing.
You're not crazy. We were actually playing Halo last night, and all of a sudden, one of us just starts going, "Oh, you don't have the right. You don't have the right."
Yeah, dude. I have a version of that song that I sing every time I see it, and everyone around me is like, "What is Travis doing?" And I'm like, "I don't have the right. I can't get through this door. I got to sing about it, man. Got to sing about it."
I just love that there's these, the messages within the Souls games and now Elden Ring, of course, just create this little sub like inside jokes basically within the community.
I'm convinced that Twitter would be a better place if we were forced to choose from pre-made templates and words. I honestly feel like it forces you to be really creative with the things that you say, and I feel like it would really help with the the dialogue that we're having with each other and on Twitter if we had a similar situation.
Thank you, Pampa. Too funny.
First off, great super chat.
Yes. First off.
It's so funny, as a guy that has played 35 hours of this, I just don't read messages. That's just completely over my head.
Oh yeah. That is my guide. Like, because I don't use guides, that's how I find things out.
My biggest complaints about Elden Ring is, while this might be creative and fun for some folks, is the people putting messages on various bits of geometry and things like that really ruin various looks and runes for me.
They try to upset you too. They'll like label
messages on things. And it's every single one of those statues with the arms has like a message.
Statue of America. Yeah. You can turn them off.
You can turn them off. You can.
What I would really like is I'd like to keep the phantoms and the blood pools and turn the messages off. I don't know if I don't believe I have that option.
Gotcha.
You have to turn it all off, I think. But yeah, it's definitely part of the community. Also, I meant to say this. I forgot to say this earlier in the show. As you pointed out, Ains, I'm 70 hours into the game. I found my first illusory wall. Yes. What up, guys? I found it. First
Travis
of many, we
hope.
hope.
Next 180 hours rubbing against every wall in the game.
Well, I've been doing that anyway. Anytime somebody says illusory wall, I know it's not real, but I still swing my sword just in case. Just in case.
Most of them are in the dungeons, but like there's this. Again, like, who figures this out? There's this one quest line, 20 seconds, I promise. But there's this one quest line where, like, the next step in it to find this hidden character is in the middle of nowhere in Caelid, behind a certain tombstone on a cave wall that just looks like any other wall. In one spot you hit, and there's a fake wall that takes you down into a cave to some hidden area. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, it's just, there's so much stuff that's just hidden in that game. But anyway, all right. Overwatch 2, fellas. So Blizzard has been extremely quiet on this game. Obviously, it should go without saying that Overwatch, when it came out, 2015, 2016? It's been years now. 2016. It became a cultural phenomenon, right? I mean, a gigantic game. It created its own esports league. If you weren't aware, Blizzard created an esports arena in Las Vegas where the primary attraction was the Overwatch League. There's, it's spawned all kinds of fan fiction and all this stuff. Gigantic game. Over the past few years, obviously it's still played heavily, but it's really not in the top of the conversation, I would say, anymore. And Overwatch 2, announced now a few years ago, is really just kind of fallen flat. The Kaplan, who was the beloved game director, left Blizzard, and everyone was kind of like, what's going on with this game? So we finally get an update on Friday from the new game director, basically letting us know that the PvP and the PvE elements of Overwatch 2 are going to be separated. There is a PvP beta coming next month in April. They gave some details of that. There's a new map. There's a new mode, new hero, so a bunch of updates to the existing stuff. But what I really wanted to ask you guys about is, with Overwatch being so big back in 2016, 17, etc., do you think in today's environment, because the gaming industry has changed a lot in the past 6 years, and we talk about this pretty frequently, right? And just the model of how games are delivered, the expectations for live service, like we talked about extensively last week. Overwatch 2, do you think it can recapture the magic of the original Overwatch, knowing the type of market we're in now and the competition that's out there, and how well some of these games, Destiny being an example, are delivering content? Do you think Overwatch 2 recaptures the kind of industry's attention like Overwatch 1 did when it launched?
No.
Okay. And why? Obviously,
no, I can explain. That was a joke answer. But no. First and foremost, it's going to be the next major release from Activision Blizzard. The Activision Blizzard tsunami, right? Yeah. So you're already going to have the coverage that you get right now of Activision Blizzard, maybe in a new home when Microsoft takes over. It's very unclear what that's going to look like. But as a product itself, I think it was right on the edge of its time, even when it released. And that was with people really generally having good feelings towards Blizzard and Blizzard output and believing in them as a company, I think. But even when it released, it was, this feels maybe a little bit more like a free-to-play game with characters added or something else that we've seen. And that's only grown since that game released. And basically, because they went to make a sequel, my understanding, I'm not a member of the Overwatch community, but my understanding is it kind of wasn't touched up while they were working on the sequel, that Overwatch 1 was kind of let to fester for a long time with whatever its seasonals currently were and maybe only small adjustments. And that to me was a mistake in of itself. You've got Overwatch as a base, you sell the base and you tweak that and you do things into that. I think that's what everybody would expect now. And I think if Blizzard's being honest with itself, and you get this from some of its statements a little bit, you'd get, maybe we should have done this differently. Maybe we should have approached this project a little bit from the opposite end and changed Overwatch and corrected it and done those various things on the fly. And so to me, Activision's got strong headwinds just in anything that it does. And it's late to the party, and people may or may not believe in them even supporting this current game, because I know a number of my friends that have played Overwatch feel a little bit burned by what happened with Overwatch 1 when they went to go get their next money pile. So I think there's a lot of headwinds on this kind of thing. Now, every single one of those headwinds goes away if it's just some kind of bonkers, crazy, awesome game, right?
Sure.
That's gaming. That's the gaming industry in a nutshell. If it were just unbelievably awesome and responsive and all the ideas were fantastic, that would be one thing. I don't know if we have any reason to believe that that's the case, especially with, directors and creatives moving in and out and everything that's happening at Activision Blizzard right now.
Well, and I think the questions about it even needing a sequel to further your point, right, is like Overwatch. Yeah, it's like the model, as you said, right, is to continue evolving the game, continue adding content, and that seems to be working for a number of games. And now you've got the sequel, which is really the same game, just with some new modes and maps and adjustments, which are like, those are things you could have added over time to Overwatch 1. Why did you why did you pause development on this fantastic game, that so many millions of people loved, and now you've got people for years waiting for the sequel, which doesn't even look that different. It's just a very strange kind of direction to take.
Well, it reminds me of Destiny, right? I still forget to say 2 when I talk about Destiny.
Yeah, it's just Destiny. Yeah.
But like, that was Activision Blizzard, right? I mean, and Bungie, you can put it on whoever's feet you want, but that was always weird when they announced it. It's like, well, this is this ever-evolving 10-year world. Why is there a 2? What's happening? Yeah. And I still forget now that Destiny 2 is really what I think they were talking about with Destiny, to even say 2. The 2 means nothing.
I think everyone does. It's just Destiny. Yeah.
So Overwatch, we're talking about games as a service again, right?
There we are.
And I would say Overwatch, the reason it has a sequel is the reason that every games as a service game ends up having a sequel, which is that you release a game and the response is very good, but your game is good, but the games as a service part is bad. And there's tons of examples of this in the games as a service industry. Destiny is, as you pointed out, one of them. They came out with a actually, I would say that the original Destiny wasn't a good game, but they had a few good expansions, but the games as a service part wasn't good. And what you see with that is that over time, people have a really hard time wanting to get back into a game that they haven't played in a while, and the go-to excuse in the games as a service community is, I'll wait till the next game and then I'll hop back on the wagon and keep up with it, right? And so you need the second game as a catalyst to give you a second chance. And then your hope is when you release the second game, you get the games as a service part right, and then you don't have to make one after that. And this actually has been going on in the industry for way longer than Destiny or stuff. Like Dota 2 is actually a great example. They came out with Dota. It was a fine game. The service part wasn't great. It could use some improvements. They came out with Dota 2. Dota 2 is the last one, right? Like that's actually super common in the games industry. And so I think Overwatch I actually don't even like Overwatch, to be honest with you guys. I played it. I played it for a little bit, and I was sort of like, this seems like a bad shooter. And then I stopped playing it. But just based on the fact that the IGN office was filled with people playing Overwatch like every week for like 4 months after the game was out, I think it's clear like people really, really dug that game.
This is where I preferred Battleborn, right? So
yeah, right. That's a deep cut right there. For me, you know what it was that pissed me off about Overwatch that made me not want to play it is I watched all those trailers with like these great stories, and then I played the game, and none of that was in the game.
None of it.
I felt bamboozled, and I was just like, I don't want to play this damn game. I was just too pissed at it for that.
Well, they have fun ideas even in that game. It's like, well, these characters are these are related to these, and it's like none of this comes across.
None of this comes out, and then I had people telling with the gall to tell me, "Oh, well, you get it in some of the dialogue before each map," and I was like, "Go away, get out of my like, I don't want to talk to you. That's not what they the bill of goods they sold me with those Pixar level animations that I was.
Isn't that what they're supposed to be doing with 2, right? With the PvE stuff.
Yeah.
But that statement is basically like, we don't know what we're doing with single player. Like the statement is we're going to release Overwatch 2 as if it were Overwatch 1, and then all the rest of the promises, they're coming slower.
Yeah. And so with Overwatch 2, I think this is their attempt to say, all right, everybody get back on the wagon, and then this time we're going to actually we're going to ride it, we're going to drive it correctly. And this is like every game has done this, right? And I think Halo Infinite, to what we were talking about last week, is an example that I think could end up being a lot like Overwatch, which is a great game with a bad games as a service follow-up that ends up meaning that you have to make Halo Infinite 2. You have to do a second attempt at it.
More Infinite.
Right? Well, I mean, hey, look, Destiny 2 is Destiny 2 is an equally stupid title, so I would not be surprised.
Yeah.
But
Final Fantasy is a stupid title. I mean, look, we got a lot of stupid titles.
We got a lot of dumb titles in the
Final Fantasy 16, pretty stupid.
Really bad, yeah. Final Fantasy 14 is an ongoing game, but 15 isn't. It doesn't make any sense to me. But yeah, the danger you have whenever you do one of these relaunches is that if you fail a second time, that is usually the death blow. We've not seen a game as a service get a third chance. And you see this like a really prominent example is the Division. Division guy had a chance. They made a good game, bad games as a service model. Then they made a second game, and they got closer, but they didn't do it enough. And I don't think we'll ever see Division 3. And not because Division 2 is getting supported, but because it's sort of 2 strikes and you're out in the games as a service industry. People don't like to give that third attempt for whatever reason.
Well, they are making Division Heartland, whatever that ends up being.
Correct, but I think there's a reason that they're not calling it 3, right? So I'm interested to see which side of kind of history Overwatch 2 ends up being on, but I would say, just based on what I know of Blizzard's release models, that they're not super good at coming up with content quickly. And I think that that's one of the key things, like sort of like what 343 is doing, right? Like their game is suffering not because the game is bad, but because they are having trouble supporting it, especially at the level of quality that players want and that players expect. Like you have to be quick, it has to be good, and all the things that are like super hard to do in game development. But if you want to be a games as a service game, you have to build the infrastructure to support that. And saying game development is hard isn't an excuse. You knew what game you were making when you started making it, so you should have built the infrastructure to support it.
Yeah, pipeline.
People pounce on things like 343. And I'm not going to get too deep in Halo Infinite because we did that. Check out our archive; it's good stuff.
Last week,
when you see those footfalls, which aren't big in and of themselves, but like the pricing model or how the battle pass works, or the fact that we might disagree on this, but that there are certain aspects of the campaign that feel unfinished and that we hope there's a pipeline for moving forward. And then you start to lose hope. You start to get a little bit diminished. It's like, oh, that's wrong. And then they fix that quick, and that's easy to fix. But then you're like, well, how are things going on in the back end? That's where I think live services games like lose people, is when you lose that faith. It's an article of faith that it's going to keep going and that it's going to improve and that there are people looking at it and working on it. Get to see the fruits of their labor on something like a reasonable time frame. Halo Infinite only came out in December, so we're only now in March. But I personally would like to be able to hear more. And you said don't give timelines, don't make promises. I agree with that. But the reason I had so much rejection of the statement last week is it sounded like still too opaque, still too weird for me to believe that like things are all okay and hunky-dory back there. It's like every time you read an Avengers statement from Crystal Dynamics, it's like, dear God, what is happening? what is
That is you're totally right, Rick. Like that is a danger of games as a service, is that on one hand you don't want to promise anything because I think we've learned that it's a bad practice. Right. But on the other hand, there are so many examples of games as a service games that say they're going to be supported and then don't. And Anthem is a great example of that. And there's this weird, like, you have to pick your bets and figure out like how much do you trust that it's actually going to be supported and all of that stuff when you're making your decisions about games as a service, which is why I think a lot of them go free to play, because that way they can go, okay, well, it's a free game. There's kind of no promises. So you can only expect so much. And then that way it takes a little bit of the pressure off, and Game Pass certainly is something that can enable that as well. But I think the important thing is that communication happens, because with Anthem, no communication is basically a sign that their plans to support the game may have changed completely. Halo Infinite, just giving vague timelines, it just tells you they're going to support the game. It's just a matter of when that's going to apply. And you have certain games just go off the grid, and that's when you know something is really wrong.
And Halo, like, to defend 343 a little here is, even over the past couple of weeks, Joseph Staten has come out, Unishek, who's obviously their community manager, and others have said, like they're communicating about their roadmap, right? There's no definitive timelines yet, but they're saying, we understand the roadmap. They spoke about the ranked matchmaking system this week. They're very communicative. So I think that's one positive. And I just like to say that
if you're communicating at all, I would put you in like the good actors camp.
Exactly.
Because there's so many games as a service that just don't communicate at all. And like that's usually, and again, this is like a new standard, right? We don't expect Forbidden West to communicate with us about how they're going to support their game, because that's not part of their service. This is a specific problem with like games that give you that promise when you buy it, and no, any communication, especially with 343, is actually really good because they talk about it every week, at least in some level. And I think if you're doing that, you're pretty damn sure that there's going to be support. It's just a matter of when. And that's a very different problem than wondering if your game is going to be supported at all when they told you that was what's going to happen when they sold you the game.
Well, and Halo's spot in the Microsoft library is useful for that, because it's too high a political cost to dump.
For sure.
Master Chief.
Of course.
You can't just abandon Halo Infinite. So there's a high degree of confidence there, but like that's a real problem. Like people who bought Anthem were like, okay, you said you're going to support it when, and then they got no news, and then it never happened.
I think Anthem is the worst, and I think people probably still aren't holding EA's feet to the fire enough, even though I agree. It's a joke, because Anthem has a full-on roadmap that they release in the pre-order period that they just ignore. Then they do 2.0 to get people invested, and then they just cut its legs off.
Yep.
And it's like, that's abhorrent. Like
it was a running joke on this show for months and months. Every week we would talk about Anthem 2.0. And it always makes me sad because I loved Anthem. There was such a cool foundation there that they needed to build on. And 2.0, the 2.0 blueprint of what they were going to do was the right direction. And when they canceled it, to your point, Rick, it was just like, what are you doing? Like
personnel, right? You saw the personnel leave, and then you saw them drag the guy over into Dragon Age, and then they say, oh, Anthem 2.0 will be fine. I have a video, you can look it up, where I say bullshit. There is no way that 2.0 is surviving that change. And then they announced it like 2 minutes later. It was like the next week.
Yeah. And I think that's Anthem, like, this is why, like, you can tell that 343 has been paying attention, right? They've been doing their homework on this, because they didn't make the roadmap. And in fact, they didn't even really advertise the game as a service part a ton. They just said our plan is to support this over time, which is exactly the messaging you want to do.
Travis. I said it wasn't obviously a live service. I
think it was obviously a live service. Everything from the title to
advertise it in mind.
They didn't advertise the plan, really. They just said this is a game we want to support.
That's a part where I'm still upset about. Okay, we're gonna go into 343. Just 1 second here, which is that I would love to know that they know that their campaign feels incomplete. Like I would love them to acknowledge that fact, so that I at least knew that it was,
I don't think that they would acknowledge that, and I don't think most other people who played the campaign would agree with that.
We had this conversation last week.
So again, it's like this comes down to whether or not you liked Halo. But the way I view it is, they said, here's a game that we think is good, and people agreed, and then they said, and our plan is to support it. And people who bought the game largely knew that was the plan, but it's not like they gave a roadmap or expectations or stuff like that. And that's the Anthem lesson. The Anthem lesson is that if you're going to support your game, you say that you would like to support it, but you don't give specifics, you don't make promises, and you don't just create this weight of expectation that then murders your game, because you can't live up to it. That's Travis, just the wrong way to do it.
I can show you a bunch of reviews. I really can, that say, well, the campaign is the campaign, but we know they're going to support it and add on to it, and we look forward to what they're going to add to the campaign. Like, there's a bunch of reviews that give them the benefit of the doubt there. I would like to know that they know that that's a thing that they should be doing.
That it's an expectation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've said that they're gonna develop the story, and when we assume that that's going to happen.
Like, if I were to complain again, I would argue that what you saw with the multiplayer is like, oh, that's exactly the opposite of what I want. I don't want more detail and campaign and context or whatever focused on multiplayer seasons, right? That's not what I'm going to play in Halo anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so you're trying to have both sides here. In fact, in two different products, it gets weirder. But I do think, before we get into a fight on 343 and Halo, because we did it last week, check it out. I'm fully willing to acknowledge that 343 and Microsoft are nowhere near the level of vitriol that I have for EA and BioWare and how they handled Anthem.
Yeah,
like, it isn't even close.
And I would say that they're actually in like the top 10 percentile of games as a service in general, just based on what we've seen so far in terms of their messaging and the moves they're making from like a expectations and game as a service model. Like, they're following best practices.
Yeah.
And
well, and to your point, it's only 3 months old. Like, it's not like it's been out for a year.
The thing is, Blizzard, with all the turmoil that's going on at Activision Blizzard, I have a really hard time feeling that they're going to be the best ambassadors after they've shown Overwatch 1 did not do a great job, and they're not really used to the game as a service model, with World of Warcraft being the extremely notable exception, probably one of the most successful game as a service games of all time. But that I kind of put WoW in just like a separate, it doesn't make sense bucket.
I think
it's like
fully
Nintendo.
Subscribed MMOs are in a different bucket, period. I mean,
they are, for sure.
Different skill set.
But the models still, there's a lot you can learn from one to the other, and I think if Blizzard goes down that route and they actually support it, it'll be great. But the way I view it is like, this is their last shot, and it's not looking good so far, because just from
the reason I brought up Articles of Faith is that who in the world has faith in Activision Blizzard right now, and in a Blizzard that is not only not the same Blizzard that released Overwatch, it's not the same Blizzard that existed last March. I mean, like, there is massive.
And in a year from now, it won't be the same Blizzard that exists today by a lot.
Especially if it's owned by Microsoft.
Right?
Exactly.
So when you talk about Articles of Faith, it's like you've got Microsoft has some of that. Like, I have a lot of faith in how they treated Sea of Thieves, for instance. Sea of Thieves was garbage. It had a really cool scene when it released.
I really liked it, actually. But
as it released, there was nothing in it.
It was pretty bare. Cool Come on,
you make your own fun. That was what I liked about it. So
they delivered a wonderful ocean.
It was so good, though. I was one of those guys who, like, I got bit by Sea of Thieves at the beginning, because it was like, oh, like, me, I like PvP, so it was like, oh, I get to like go around and rob people. Like, this is awesome, and I like found my own fun, and then they added stuff on it now.
But I think most people like it.
Probably, yeah.
In any event, I do have, you get these kinds of goodwill, badwill feelings on these various things. Microsoft sticking with Sea of Thieves, seeing all of that pay off massively.
Yeah, dude.
Like, okay, one lesson Microsoft learned is you can do what you did with Sea of Thieves. And so that gives you hope with them as the parent. It says, okay, if something doesn't launch perfect, let's Sea of Thieves this thing. Now that's too naive. It doesn't always work, and it doesn't always have the right kind of ingredients for that. But I do have that certain amount of goodwill for, okay, we've seen Microsoft take a game that
it's not talked about as heavily, but
we've also seen them do the opposite.
State of Decay 2 is the same way.
State of Decay 2?
Yeah, that game has more players than people realize, and it's continually updated for free, and has been for a couple years now.
I always found it too janky. It's just me.
Well, I know.
I know. It's a little too fiddly.
But I mean, they've continually updated that game, and it just brings people back and back and back and back.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I will say they also have a track record of doing the opposite. They released that was it Ninja Theory that put out the?
I remember the silly arena game with
Bleeding Edge. Thank you. I was actually looking for it in my library while I was doing it. Yeah, there it is, Bleeding Edge.
Yeah.
So that's an example of a game where, like, you could tell almost at the beginning that they weren't like fully committed to it. They were kind of like waiting to see what the install base was, and I think it really comes down to budget. Like, Sea of Thieves they had too much time and marketing dollars spent on that game to just like let it die.
What else had Rare
But
been doing? Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
But Bleeding Edge, like that game, like they give it like
was-
a month and then they were like, all right, let's put it out to pasture.
that
Like
Bleeding Edge was made by 14 people.
Yeah.
Was Ninja Theory, was that released right after they bought them?
Yes.
Yeah, it was a side project. I actually spoke to two of the people, incling Ninja Theory's head.
Me
at
too.
E3
I got
in
to do
20
an interview with them.
Yeah, 20 was it 19, I think?
For the record.
At 2019, and it was clear that it was made by 14 people. It was a side project that they decided to turn into a full game, and it actually had potential. They didn't do anything with it. Like when you first played that game, it was like you had arenas and characters and combat. There was nothing else in the game. There was no progression.
Funny?
There was like nothing else to do.
You know, it's funny, when I interviewed the people on that team, the writing was on the wall as somebody who's like been so close to games as a service, because my first question for them was, if your team is just 14 people, how are you going to support the game? Like, the games as a service have massive demand to like be updated and supported. And their answer to me was, well, like we said, we're a small team, but we're going to do our best. We're kind of just going to listen to the community and see what happens. And I was like, nope, this is going to die. Like, that is not the correct answer. So Microsoft has examples of both, of like being a good ambassador and being like a really bad one.
I will say that a project half undressed when you purchase a company is not quite the same thing I would blame entirely on them.
For sure.
Often
Yeah.
A little bit extra.
That's fair. Yeah. And I don't think even if they had an unlimited budget, they could have ramped the team fast enough to support the live service model. In my opinion, you really have to have the live service model as a concept when you start making the game. Like,
agreed. It has to be built that way.
It has to be built in. You have to have a live service team. You have to have like all these things. And if it's just like, oh, we made the game, and if people like it, then we'll add on to it. Like the examples you can point to where that has been successful are infinitesimal, like so small. It's like I think an example is probably Among Us. That's a great example, right? That was one made by a small team, probably not meant to be but the only reason that they got the exception is because COVID happened and their game blew up like during the Zoom era.
3 years old when they're
exactly. And no one was talking about it. Yeah,
but it's also, that's a much easier game to code for than something like an Anthem or by the way, let me get these super chats real quick because I missed one from Eric before he headed out, and we've had a good conversation going here that I didn't want to interrupt. But Mr. Game Positive, this is all the way back in our Elden Ring joking about the messages. He said, "Gotta run. You're all a beautiful liar ahead." Another thing that you.
Which one of us is he talking about? Who's
lawyer
the liar?
ahead?
It's pronounced lawyer.
Lawyer ahead.
Lawyer ahead. Yeah, he's probably referring to Rick here. Let's be honest. But
nice.
Eric, if you catch up on this later, thank you very much, man. Sorry we missed it late there. And of course, Hassan in the house, my Anthem 2.0 brother. The $5 super chat, just merely saying,
amazing
Anthem. Just
amazing.
pour one out.
I could put all the puns about music.
Hogue, I will say, for games as a service, you know who I think taught Microsoft the playbook is Minecraft. I think Mojang taught them it.
Yeah, that could make sense.
Because I think Sea of Thieves follows the Minecraft model really closely, and I think that's probably going to be their guiding star going forward. Because Minecraft
I was so impressed by that, because I could have easily seen even a Microsoft from a few years before that go, Jesus, we don't know what this is that we released. And whatever.
Totally. I think Mojang is.
I Microsoft and Rare have this interesting relationship, because it's like I don't know that they know what is Sea of Thieves. Is that going to work out? And then what is this nature crap you're doing that you just went back to the beginning and you don't know what the game is? It's like we've got Rare as like the weird kid in the corner that's just doodling.
Well, it ties back to the conversation you've pointed out, Rick, about kind of the level of agency that Microsoft decides its studios are going to have, right? And it feels like Rare. Yeah, it's like Rare has just been, like you said, they're the kid in the corner. It's like, okay, they've got their weird box of crayons with unique colors, and they're doing their own thing.
They're making
and it's
like
now. Yeah, now they're drawing pirate ships, and there's some woman in with a deer. We don't know what's happening.
People give them crap, but like Viva Pinata, man, has there ever been a more creative game?
I love that game.
Series?
I love Viva Pinata.
Such a good game. I remember that game came out. It was like right around Halo 3, and all of a sudden my friends list went from Halo 3 to people online playing Viva Pinata, and I was like, I looked it up, and I was like, what are these guys playing? This is insane. And then I was in a GameStop, and I saw it used for $8, and I was like, you know what? All my friends are playing. I'll buy it. And I went home and I lost my weekend to that game. I was
an awesome game.
Obsessed with it. So
romance dance is one of my favorite euphemisms in gaming. Romance dance is a fantastic
the romance dance
with the little the little thing. Yeah,
it's beautiful. Yeah. What a great game.
Real Radek pointed out Destruction All Stars is another service bomb that happened over on the PlayStation. I mean, that game bombed right out of the gate, and
PlayStation has no idea how to do games as service.
No, they don't,
and that's why they bought Bungie.
They buy Bungie.
That's right, exactly.
And that concerns me because they better get their act together when they bring Twisted Metal back. Because if they screw Twisted Metal up, there's going to be a problem.
Twisted Metal's been screwed up many times. I'm sure it'll survive it.
Completely agree, but. There are people like me who want to see a proper return for that game, and if they screw it up, there's going to be
everyone wants to see a proper return. It's just that the fans are sort of like even they don't believe it will ever happen. They'll never get it right.
Come back as a genre. How could vehicle combat not work as a genre?
Yeah, right. Like,
how is no one doing this? That's my point. Like, come on.
Yeah. Did you guys ever play that game? Did you guys ever play that game Split Second on the 360 generation?
Yes.
The racing game.
Yeah, that was the Disney one. That was
super underrated.
They were gamers.
So underrated. It was like it combined like racing with like over the top action and like kind of
yeah.
That's so good.
Like the stadium crumbles as you drive through it, right?
Yes, it was so cool. I'm with you guys.
Weird driving games I've enjoyed. I liked Stuntman. Those were so weird.
I love that game too. Stuntman, so underrated. Yeah.
But it's crazy to me. We joked all the time. It's like you have Twisted Metal, you have these amazing characters, vehicle combat, and Battle Royale is big right now. Like, how are you not doing this? What is wrong with you guys?
You guys made a Battle Royale genre, which is named after a movie about cars doing Battle Royale, and you did make a car version.
You made it 20 years prior, to the genre exploding.
Hey, but Forza did it. Forza Horizon actually does have a really cool Battle Royale mode.
Oh yeah, I've played a lot of it. It's great.
It isn't bad.
Yeah, I've played it.
But it's not the same thing. There's no destruction.
Right.
There needs to be a destruction-based car game. We're not there yet.
Those were so fun back in the day.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Agreed.
No doubt. So PlayStation, we'll jump over to then. That's a good segue to their state of play we had this week. So we had a 20-minute state of play on Wednesday from PlayStation. Not awful. Well, that's one way to put it.
Not awful.
Being optimistic. Give him his optimism.
I screwed up your intro because I jumped in on it. But is your stance going to be awful?
No. I'm actually usually relatively positive on these kind of little shows we get. Because I think we can all agree. Some people, of course, have their expectations way too high for these little side shows we get. And I'm always happy to just see new games in general. That said,
you didn't announce the PlayStation 6 at this 20-minute conference? Are you sure?
One of these days, they're going to tell me.
Yeah, one of these days.
Fantasy projects. It's going to be great. One of these days, I continue on Vigil. There wasn't a lot here that interested me personally, but I know some people kind of enjoyed it. So we're not going to talk about all the games. Obviously, there's a whole list here. Exoprimal?
We can talk about whatever game you want. But we saw, Trek to Yomi stood out, which I think has before. Obviously, the Turtles Cowabunga collection for the old guy, the seasoned guys, was cool. Forspoken was shown again, which also this week got delayed till October. And then a few other things. We saw Ghostwire Tokyo, and of course, it was the Square show. We got multiple games from Square that all look the same. I don't know what the hell's going on over there.
My God.
But
that's it. I'm done.
We got the logo.
Yes.
The Hogo.
I sent Hogue away so far. We only went the logo, but But anyway, okay, so not a lot.
I'm on your side with this one, Hogue. I don't know what he's talking about. He doesn't like Japanese RPGs. I don't think anymore. He's sort of he's fallen off the wagon.
No. Hey, Elden Ring is a Japanese RPG.
Oh boy, yeah, Hogue is gonna have problems with that. So I agree with you, and I'm surprised to hear that the Japanese industry calls it JRPG. They're like, oh, it's a modern JRPG, but
Yeah,
it's
because it's better than all the other JRPGs. So, anyway,
to take.
I know. But anyway, in all seriousness, I wasn't big on the show, but hey, it is what it is. A 20-minute state of play in the middle of the week. So, what stood out to you guys then? If you didn't think this was bad and you liked the Square RPGs they did show, what stood out to you?
Well, first of all, weather reports on dinosaurs, I think jumps out. I think that's why it led the show.
Sure.
And you could tell almost instantly it was Capcom. They just have this certain type of characters they put into these things.
Yep.
So I thought originally, I'm like, is this Dino Crisis? And of course it is in a certain fundamental way. But instead
spiritual successor.
Yeah, instead it's exoprimal because there's just not enough dinosaur murdering in Dino Crisis. So I mean, to me, some of the fun stuff you get from Japanese publishers is how freaking goofy they are. Like the you think about the whiteboard or the green light session for, all right, so we got dinosaurs coming out of black holes. They're going to attack cities. Sure, go on.
Yep, I'm in.
Like that doesn't get out of the room in certain of the publishers that we talk about more often, right? And so I do like that they bring weirdness into the
absolutely. I think all the time about the drug cocktails that must be involved in a Yakuza game. Like what are they doing? Like
Yakuza's a great
so good.
Such a weird flavor, right? It's like somebody explaining to you like a chocolate and avocado sandwich, and it's like it's not gonna work. But the Yakuza people figure it out. You do the wackiest, stupidest stuff. And then you have like this super serious, like Steven Soderbergh crime drama
on top of all of that. Yeah,
together.
That's actually well written too. Like
it's so good. Oh my god,
man! Zero is one of my favorite stories in games. It's like that's fantastic.
Did you like a Dragon?
I have not gotten past about halfway through.
I loved it.
Oh,
I loved it.
Okay, you have to play it. It was like
something else
my
popped
God.
up. I think we all have this in our history. It was like something else big came out.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Definitely catch up with it. It's
I'll go back to it.
It's so good. I have every achievement in that game. I played the crap out of that game. Oh my God.
You give me a video game story about real estate speculation where I can also kick people in the head. I
was blown away. I swear to God, I played like the whole week of like Christmas break. I wasn't doing anything, and I think I spent like 2 days just doing that mini game. Like it was like so bad. But yeah, I'm with you, man. Like, but like the Japanese, they just.
I hope it's a good game to play, but like just in terms of tone, I'm like I want to check out what is that?
Yeah,
that's why it leads the show, because like we're going to show you somebody's reporting on dinosaurs. Okay, cool. So I mean that one jumped out at me. The other one that jumped out at me, I actually tweeted out. I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Is the Dealfield Chronicle, which starts out with what is my personal catnip, my kryptonite, which is a map with like crests on it, and then like a narrator talking from a historical perspective. And the reason I said what's wrong with me in my tweets was it's like I'm literally playing Triangle Strategy from this company right now, and I'm like, ooh, it's like that meme. He's like, you got Triangle Strategy right here. I was like, wait, what's it?
Yeah.
So I was watching that, but yeah, they start out with that narration and the crests, and it's like, you show me some borders changing. Ooh.
So you're furthering my point that it all looks the same, but continue.
Well, I mean, those particular types of trailing games, if they want to say, hey, this is about politics, that's mostly how they do it. Is they do the various things.
If I can interject just to help your point, Hogue.
Sure.
If you're gonna criticize Hogue for liking two games,
I'm not criticizing Hogue.
Wait. If you made a snide comment, I will count that as a criticism about Hogue liking two games made by the same developer that look similar. Yeah. You just got done completing 200 hours on a new IP that looks awful lot like some of the other IPs that studios come out.
Well, more importantly, I think in trailer form, if you think back to like the teaser of Elden Ring and the teaser of Sekiro, for instance, it's like the same close-up pans of things that are inscrutable and like one line's golden on the screen. Like
I'm having flashbacks from like trailers I looked at on like the Microsoft Store.
But I mean, like you're trying to convey this. It is what you think it is. Like that's the Elden Ring teaser is like you know what this is from logo. Oh yes, you are right. Also the guy that did half of a Game of Thrones. And then, that's it. Yeah. Okay. So they have the similar kind of thing. And then they show some gameplay footage. I don't think anybody could confuse Dealfield Chronicle with how Triangle Strategy looks or plays based on what we could see from that teaser. But yeah, I'm a sucker for what used to be like the Ivalice model of what Square Enix was putting out, the Vagrant stories, the Final Fantasy Tactics, the kind of more mature politics-based stories. And so you throw one of those up and I go, all right, I'm listening. And so I like that one. I liked Exoprimal. And again, I'm a big fan of Japanese publishers, so that's why you'll hear more from me maybe on this. And Forspoken, God, I want Forspoken to be great, but man, it never looks compelling to me.
Thank you. Okay. I was going to ask you guys because there's some people I know who are really hyped for this game, and every time I see it, I'm like, I don't know what you're looking at.
I would
like,
be happy to be pleasantly surprised at the end
too.
of the day. I mean,
too.
like that's what it's going to be, because right now I'm like, you delayed it, I don't care. Maybe it's to put stuff in your world. I don't know.
They show the same thing every trailer. It's just fancy spell effects and dancing, and I'm like, you're not showing anything worthwhile here.
The games are obviously way different, but I'm kind of getting Recore vibes from it. In terms of like, it's like a game where you look at it and you're like, okay, it's going for that certain thing, but something just doesn't feel
right.
It doesn't feel like it's AAA or it's like at that level.
I feel that, and
it reminds me of Recore. Like I can't get that comparison in my head.
To me, Luminous is the most wrong-headed thing that Square Enix has done in the last decade, and they're essentially chasing good money with bad, or bad money with good, or however you want to frame it, where they've got Luminous Productions, and it's nothing on them as developers or people. They're saddled with this engine that apparently takes a lot of effort to make things in, and then like doesn't look as good as Unreal games. I mean, like if you look at Final Fantasy VII Remake versus Final Fantasy 15, to me, it's pretty obvious. Final Fantasy VII Remake is significantly better looking. And then you go back to Forspoken, and it's like, it's supposed to give you these dashes and like agility in their engine and things. And it's like, it doesn't look god awful. And I thought the Spell trailer that wasn't a part of this, that they put out the same day, was better. That was a Game Informer exclusive. Sorry, Travis.
Yeah.
And they scooped us. They often do.
We got that Forspoken cover for a game that's now 7 months out. Yeah, so you see those trailers and you see, okay, so they're focused on, I don't know, whatever, alpha particles, cool elemental effects. It's like, you still have to tell the story, and the world seems empty. And the thing I don't like about that trailer is like, you've got some of those Marvel lines. You got the like, well, what do you feel about the world? It's like, well, everything's trying to eat me. I'm like, you have to hit that perfect, and I don't trust you. I don't trust you, writers.
No, and it's like it's trying to be cool at the same time, and they've got this
hip,
hip, and you've got this weird music track overlaid with this half fantasy world. I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like you even know what you want this game to be.
It feels it's like that how are we doing, my fellow kids, like situation where it's
a little bit. It feels like we're trying so hard to be hip, and we're gonna put what I said is NBA 2K music over. It's like, all right, I get it, I guess, but I mean, that's a hard tone to hit. I don't like any of this that I've seen, so I don't trust you.
Any of this.
I don't trust
I'm with
you,
them.
but I can be happily surprised. I mean,
it's
really
Square Enix, right?
It's Square Enix.
So I'll say this about Square Enix. They often do terrible showcases of games that end up being good. And Guardians of the Galaxy is an extremely good example of that.
My favorite game of last year, was not interested in it as I bought it. As I spent the money.
I hate that I'm buying this, but here we go.
I'm just the kind of guy that says, well, it's it's an action adventure, but all right. And then you just don't think about it enough, and the button's already pressed. And it's like, should I have bought this? I got other stuff to play, right? And then my favorite game of last year.
Well, I think it's a fair comparison.
That was Guardians of the Galaxy?
Guardians of the Galaxy was my game of the year last year.
I really, really liked that game. Not my game of the year, but man, it was such a good game.
So again, with Forspoken too, you got a new IP where it could land, couldn't land, as we're talking about.
They've now Amy Hennig's one of the writers. I generally trust.
She is. But they've now moved it to the middle of October. Again, they're putting it out in the heart of primetime big IP games.
You could argue that's positive. You could argue that they believe in it.
Guardians of the Galaxy did the same thing.
Yeah, Guardians had the same problem.
Is October the prime time for big games after last year?
Well, and that's a known IP. Guardians is a known IP and still failed. Didn't fail, but sales-wise, then again, Square says anything under 80 million.
Like, to me, when Guardian comes out and you just came off of Avengers from Square Enix, and I know they're different teams, although GameSpot didn't know that when they were reporting on this, that I know they're different teams. But if you're looking,
I'll always support a GameSpot slam. So I'm in favor of that.
I actually tweeted them because they said Guardians of the Galaxy from Crystal Dynamics. I'm like,
oh no,
yeah. I think I tweeted, you're thinking of Avengers GameSpot.
Yeah. Oh my God, that is a pretty big mistake.
Different companies that look the same from a branding perspective, right? I think Guardians got caught a little bit in Square made that Avengers game. I don't want to play Guardians. I know in my head I was thinking that. I was like,
I was actually thinking of the Telltale Guardians game. I was like, can a Guardians game even work? Awful. Yeah, it was really bad. I was like, did it work?
Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy is on Game Pass right now. If you've got Game Pass,
it is.
I'm not trying to sell subscriptions to people here, but if you've already got it, my game of the year, my favorite story of the year, my favorite musical score and soundtrack at the same time.
I bought that soundtrack. Really good.
That's great. That's good stuff. Yeah. And so do check it out. It is enormously underloved. And to their credit, some of the reasons why it's so awesome never made it into any of their marketing. The where the story goes.
Maybe Forspoken.
Yeah.
Maybe Forspoken. I'm just saying.
I'm reserving for it to be. I'm going to buy this game. It's Square Enix JRPG. Okay, so I'm reserving for it to be a pleasant surprise.
But I can't wait for you to be unenthused when you click that purchase button.
Every time they show it, I don't love it. You know, there's a game in the PlayStation 2 era that reminds me of the same kind of concept. I think I might have already tweeted this out as well, called Primal, which is a girl from the modern era gets sucked into a fantasy world. She's escorted around by Jakar from Babylon 5. It is fantastic. And so if you're thinking, hey, that sounds like an interesting concept, it's available on your PlayStation 4 or 5. It doesn't get any kind of up-resing of any kind, so don't expect it. But you can go play Primal, and that's probably what I'm going to do instead of being super hyped about Forspoken.
So we'll revisit this conversation in October then. Because
I'll buy it. I'll definitely.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Like, I'm not going to. I'll say that now. But I've gotten to the point. I don't know about you guys, but I've gotten to the point now where when I'm looking at games as they're being showcased or demoed or what have you, right? I've been gaming long enough and follow the industry closely enough where my instincts are usually on spot about upcoming games. Like, you can tell when a game's going to land well, you can tell when it's not going to land well, and I'm usually right. Not always, of course, but usually. And I'm my instincts are like, there's red lights flashing everywhere about this game, and I just don't see it hitting well.
So I will agree with you, Ains, but if you're anything like me, your good game radar has a little bit of a blind spot when it comes to certain Japanese studios that just do weird things that surprise you. And it's not exclusive to Japanese studios, but like, you know, like if you look at the Yakuza game, those also trailer really bad, the Yakuza games, in my opinion. And then you play them and it just kind of it's nothing you've ever expected. So I just think, I don't know. I give a little bit more like, maybe they'll surprise me with them, because I feel the same way about. Go ahead.
Have you seen the menus in Forspoken? Like, that is full on Square Enix weird. Like, they're all like witchcraft and like all slid to the side. And I'm like, I'm in.
We'll
for
see.
That.
We'll see
Stuff. But yeah,
look,
weird can be great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with weird.
Don't look at
but
screenshots of the Forspoken.
Weird doesn't make it great.
True.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely accurate.
Yeah,
but
true.
I will get it. Overall, like the thesis, modern day girl launched into fantasy world. I live there. That sounds good. But I don't know. A
little edgelordy, huh?
Yeah,
a little edgelordy.
A little bit, and you know, your crazy flame effects can only take you so far. So you're gonna actually have to tell a story at some point, which you're pretty much hiding completely.
Yes.
So I don't know. There's been games that do show well that, you know, I do think, Ains, you are correct that Square Enix has no faith in the sales capacity of this game. That doesn't actually mean the game is bad, right? So I think Square Enix has a loss in faith. I think that's what you're picking up on. I think that's accurate. Maybe it's a gem. Maybe it's a hidden gem.
Maybe it's a gem that they're bad at marketing.
I hope it is.
Well, Guardian just announced that they're unhappy with its sales. I'm like,
that's crazy to me.
I didn't want to buy it. You were so bad.
Yeah.
And then I was preaching on Guardians of the Galaxy, but I mean, like, I can't sell all these copies for you, Square.
Yeah, everyone I talk to loves Guardians. It's just
so good.
Montreal, by the way, it's not Crystal Dynamics. Don't get misled.
Yeah.
It's the day you
anyway,
such a good story.
Such a good story.
All right. So one other topic I wanted to talk about this week, which I thought was interesting, was Metacritic came out. And I know, you know, some people put more weight into Metacritic than others, but it's irrelevant to the conversation that they put out their 2021 publisher rankings in terms of critical reception, right? And Xbox...
like to troll.
Who, Metacritic?
Yeah, they're just like,
Yeah.
oh, this is an interesting result here.
Oh,
Here, enter
100%.
that piece.
I honestly think it's
100%.
I honestly think it's because they don't understand the industry. Like they're good at doing the aggregate thing, but they like put out these stats sometimes and they have no idea what like minefield they're stepping into. They're just like, oh,
Yes.
here's some stats we had our BI team pull from the dashboards, and then the community's just like, wait, what? Like, yeah,
it's some numbers. Why are you people eating each other? What is
yeah, we just showed you data,
and we're getting millions of hits on this for some reason. Yeah,
we should do this more often.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it was significant in a sense that Microsoft, which of course is Xbox, received the highest kind of aggregate score of their games published in 2021. Really? Hold on, let me finish the sentence. In 2021, and the highest of all time of any year recorded. They are the highest average aggregate review score for a game publisher of all time.
Flight Simulator's doing a lot of work, Travis.
Oh, I see. It's probably it's because they only put out one game and it did
no.
well.
So they list all the games, right? So you had Forza Horizon 5, which was pretty much the highest rated game of the year,
true.
right?
That's true,
you had Halo, very highly rated. You had Psychonauts 2, very highly rated. You had Flight Sim, very highly rated. So they're core games that they put out, and there's others. Age of Empires 4, very highly rated.
Oh yeah, I still haven't finished that one. That's really good game.
So long story short, and I don't have the picture in front of me. I have it uploaded on the computer, but their aggregate score was something like 87, and second place was Sony at like 82. At like 82.
Yeah, it was like 81. It was like there was like
a huge drop off, and then Nintendo was like 14.
I already know what this is gonna spark on the internet without reading.
It already is. It already is.
Oh boy,
it already is, and that's not what I want to have the conversation here, because I don't care about that conversation. But the question I have is, we know for years over the course of the Xbox One generation, which we've all talked about too much, that Xbox was having trouble publishing quality games. They'd get one once in a while, but they'd release games here and there that just were middle of the road, mediocre, okay, average, what have you, right? Last year, and we talked about it previously, was a tremendous year for Xbox Game Studios. Their games, like we just covered, were very well received, and they were excellent games. Do we think, or do you think, I guess is the question, that they've turned this corner now? Do you think they've gotten their development to a place outside of Activision Blizzard, which is a whole separate conversation, but do you think that their internal studios, the ones we've been talking about for years now, that are bringing up the upcoming games like Starfield, Redfall, Avowed, Fable, Perfect Dark, all these titles we're waiting for, do you think they know how to deliver those games in a quality AAA capacity regularly now? Have they gotten over that hump?
I think it's too soon to tell.
Okay.
To be honest. Yeah.
We've got a no and a too soon to tell.
Well, Travis's is the right answer. But I mean, if you look at these games, they hit at the same year, much like Nintendo's Switch release year, right? But it's Horizon, which I adore. I love Horizon. It's more better Horizon. I mean, Horizon has always been highly reviewed. I don't know why this one kind of crossed the threshold for people. I'm glad it did. But it's very highly reviewed. Halo, we can agree to disagree on, but certainly a lot of people like it. And then it's, Flight Sim was always going to get a high score because it's Flight Sim.
It didn't have to, though. So I don't like the hand waving. People do this a lot with like certain games. It's like, oh, they made this masterpiece level game. Yeah, but we kind of knew it was going to be masterpiece, so let's just skip over that.
I don't know that. To me, Flight Simulator as a design is resources. And they can throw Azure at it. They can throw all this money at it that it's really not comparable to anybody making a flight simulator on. When I hand wave there, if you're going to put the money into it, you're going to get that score. It's going to have a certain heightened floor because you're the only ones that even do this.
You're saying because it doesn't have any creative part to it, it just is about the tech.
I'm not Flight Simulator's designated audience, so I might be. People can come into the comments or whatever and say, "Well, Rick, you don't know why it's great in X, Y, or Z."
Yeah,
version. That's fine. To me, it's the games that came out were already on the path for the most part. The biggest difference in that, to me, is Psychonauts 2. Because I think Psychonauts 2 is reflective of a Microsoft that took Double Fine, that makes very creative stuff, that is ordinarily a little bit technically inept or janky.
Definitely.
And put all these resources into it and guided it to where it landed. Psychonauts 2 is the best example of, if you want to be optimistic about where this is going with Microsoft, that's what you point to, in my opinion. Playground making Horizon, sure. We don't know whether Playground can make Fable. I would like to think they can.
Oh, for sure. I think they definitely
it's a
can.
completely different genre and a completely different skill set in certain important ways. So I think Playground can do it. I have a lot of faith in that company, but it's not what they've been making. So it'll be more special to me if they hit that 88, 90 with a brand new Fable title. Then we got Horizon. We got it down. I don't want to disparage them or discount their efforts, but Horizon 5, Horizon 4, right? I mean, it's Horizon. And so I think in this particular instance, Microsoft hit a timing situation more than, hey, we're going to get these 34 developers completely right. Because I do still worry that their main premise is we're going to be hands off. We want people to have their independence, and we don't know what it looks like for Microsoft to run 34 companies.
Yeah. Oh, and a good, just real quick, Travis, before you comment, is don't forget too, AR pointed out that Deathloop technically is an Xbox studio as well with Bethesda now. So Deathloop was again
but Bethesda did publish that game on PlayStation.
They did.
They did. So that wouldn't be counted in Xbox's Metacritic.
No, but we're being theoretical about the future of how they deliver games, right?
But I mean, I think his question was specifically about the Metacritic.
Does it fall? No. Xbox did not publish
Bethesda.
that. Correct. Yep. So it was just an open question, because I tend to agree with you guys that they had a fantastic year. Rick, to your point, there's some caveats there between Horizon.
I'm glad the games exist.
Of course. But I mean, there's caveats to the, Horizon was a formula. We generally knew what to expect with Horizon, even though it was my highest rated game of the year and
Horizon
incredible.
5 is fantastic. But Horizon Flight Simulator and Age of Empires are the next one of those.
They're known quantities, to your
point. But Age of Empire had a different team. It had been a while, and they had a very, very different setup from what they do. Forza Horizon was making their first game as part of the Microsoft umbrella since the official acquisition, and Flight Simulator had also taken an extremely long hiatus, had a different team involved around it. I think give them credit for credit's due for last year, but I would say as it goes, I think we can all agree that 2021 for Microsoft is an outlier. Like, just if you look at their Metacritic years past, it is for sure an outlier, which is why it's their, you said highest rated of all time, right? For 1 year. It's I think it is an outlier for them. And until you can see it's a trend or it's a consistent thing, I think it's just too early to say like this is a sign of things to come. It could just be that. It could just be a perfect storm. The stars aligned and they had all these games that came out and they were good.
Right. I mean, Halo's timing was not supposed to be Halo's timing. That clearly was a struggle.
Yeah, that too.
Also, I did want to point out Forza Horizon 4 was the first after the Playground purchase.
Was it?
It was.
Yeah, they got bought in 2018.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
They were obviously already making it, but it got released after
so then
the
this
acquisition.
This would be the first game that was fully developed under Microsoft. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. So Playground was working on 4 when they got bought.
Yeah. So
God, it feels like that acquisition was so. Oh, right, because the Forza games came out hell close to each other back to back. I forgot about that.
Yeah, they alternated years. It was like the Call of Duty model, right?
Yeah.
Because Forza Motorsport 7 was 2017, and then Horizon 4 was 2018, right after.
We still don't have Forza Horizon 8 or Forza Motorsport 8, do we? Yeah.
No. That's
got to be this year, right?
Like, they're rebuilding that. I mean, like the people I've talked to have played that. Like there's entirely multiple new engines that they're building for that game from the ground up. Like that is a complete reboot of what Forza Motorsport is.
Yeah. We'll probably get a E3-ish time frame. That's usually their move. They announce it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what happened with the Horizons. I mean, we saw Mexico because they did that. They did still one of the more stunning moments in E3, which is where they have what looks like a photo of Mexico or like a stream.
Amazing.
And then the cars come through. It's like, that's pretty good, guys.
Pretty good move.
Yeah. That was good.
It's better than lowering a car from the ceiling.
Yes.
That was their old move. Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. Which car would you see?
We got a super chat here from Jacob Novik from Swedish Krona. 20 krona. Thank you, Jacob. For all three of us, Call of Duty every 3 years or one live service Call of Duty? I guess he's asking what would be our preference.
Yeah.
there's financial analysts going over all of that right now.
And the answer, truthfully, is they're going to do both. Is what they're going to try to do. But,
probably. Well, I think every 3 years is probably being optimistic if you think that they should slow down, because I don't know that they will. But I would say if you made me choose those, I think Call of Duty works better as a one-off game. I'm happy that they've found success in a live service model, but I don't think it'll work for campaigns, and I don't think that there's expectation around that. So I would be super happy if they would just make one Call of Duty game every 3 years, because every year is exhausting to me. And I don't even review the games, but it's exhausting.
Well, I think the big change you'll see is I think they're gonna separate their releases from their Warzone much more. I think they've already said in statements that there were issues with incorporating Black Ops Cold War and things into what was working at Warzone. And so I don't think they're going to try to cross market quite like that anymore. So
when they said 2023's Call of Duty, the big kind of verified rumor, if you will, is that 2023 won't have a Call of Duty release next year. So they're already moving seemingly to a more staggered release. But I'm with you, Travis.
They're not in charge long term, depending. So
that's true too.
Well, they might have to make one for 2023.
But yeah, my preference would be, to your point, I agree with Travis. I liked Call of Duty more when they took more time to make them unique, and when you bought it, it was kind of a package thing. Like you knew what you were getting, a decent campaign, a newer type of multiplayer suite. Even though Call of Duty feels like Call of Duty, I prefer that personally. So, all right. Thank you, Jacob. Appreciate that. All right. That's on Xbox, guys. Just for reference too, Xbox did announce next week, which we'll talk about on Wednesday, March 16th, 10 a.m. Pacific time. They have an ID at Xbox and Twitch stream again. So we'll see how
they're
they did.
Tunic for the 9th time. That'd be cool.
Does that have a release date yet?
Yeah, it does. Finally,
like next
finally
week.
Has a release date.
It's like next week.
I think they're gonna do the show and then release Tunic.
I saw Tunic almost as much as I saw Below. Hopefully,
Below. Cuphead was another one that got shown forever.
And I spoke to Below and Tunic at 2018's E3.
Nice, both of them,
because they had a little ID at Xbox section where you can speak to these independent games.
I remember at that E3, which I was at as well, that I thought back then, God, Tunic's been shown forever. When's this
Me
game
too.
Come out? Yeah.
4 years later.
4 years later, and we're still talking about Tunic. Unbelievable.
It's crazy.
Hey, I'm in for Tunic.
No, it looks great, but just like we've seen it. You showed it to us way too early, and like we've just hold your games
before
back.
Deathloop released last year, I was so over it in Sony presentations. I was so over Deathloop.
Yeah. Yep. That became a running joke with how much they showed that off. The only other kind of news items just to touch on is that we got a release date for Gotham Knights, the WB Games next Marvel game, or DC game, excuse me.
Them.
I kind of don't either.
Okay, so they're saying then, to your guys' point, October 25th. We know that the Suicide Squad game, if I recall correctly, has already been delayed again, right?
Yep,
delayed next year. Yeah, so Gotham Knights is kind of the big comic game that we're supposedly looking forward to now, October 25th, again, right in the heart of the fall season. So we'll see if that lands. And then we did get an update this week too on Dead Space's reboot from Motive Studios and EA. And I'm kind of surprised at this one, guys, that they gave us a little update, but they said early 2023 is their launch window. And the reason it surprises me is, if you recall, when they first announced the reboot and showed us the first little footage of it in like, what was it, third quarter of last year, 6 months ago or something.
Late-ish last year.
Yeah, they said specifically we're in extremely early development. Like they made it clear that, hey, we're just getting started here. So to give a release window essentially a year and a half after that point seems way too quick to me. I'm not confident in that.
That actually seems I just based on what we've kind of seen in the industry, I think that is really early for a remake. Right? The remakes don't seem to take a lot of time. I guess you don't have to work on story or level design. Like, you kind of know certain things. Really, it's just about getting the graphics and the gameplay down to meet modern like things.
Easy stuff.
Right. Yeah. I mean, graphics and gameplay are tough, but like you got to imagine that like a ton of game development is like the pre-process, and they basically didn't have to do any of that.
Well,
Right?
that's
Like,
true. That's very true.
Concept art. They're not
changing the story to fit in the modern era or whatever.
Yeah, there's no way they're doing that. No,
I'm just telling you, because that was the stuff I reacted to the most last year. Was like, oh, what are you doing? What? Because they're like, well, we have to get more in depth with Isaac, and it's like, no, it's a horror game. What are you talking about?
Yeah, leave Isaac alone.
So I don't know how it'll wind up. I will tell you, I have my doubts when it was announced. I have my doubts about motive. I mean, we'll see how it comes. To me, it does feel like you did warn us. Like it sounded like it was 3 years out last year. And not only is it as early as it is, it sounds like it was delayed. Like they're announcing that because they were aimed square at the holidays. Like that, they were aimed for this year, and they're telling you now it's gonna be early next year.
I think it's a blessing in disguise because
maybe it is maybe unless it's EA saying, you guys promised us more Twitch viewers when you did that big announcement. We're not getting the kind of response that we thought we would get. So your budget is this now, and get something out.
It could happen. That could happen. I swear, if they screw this up, man. Oof,
yeah, your concerns about motive are similar to my concerns about Star Wars Eclipse, which also
with Quantic Dream.
Delayed to like
Quantic Dream.
Quantic Dream.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you say what was it? It was like it might be 2028. It's like, oh, so you're having some troubles.
Here's the thing, though. That's kind of normal for Quantic Dream. Like their games take like 6-7 years to. So when they announced this, I assumed I was going to see this game like when I'm, when
PlayStation
I'm looking like
6.
Ains. I'll be looking like Ains by the time that game comes
you
out.
gonna look that good?
Yeah, I'm going to the gym, man. I'm trying to come up.
It was like the Cyberpunk announcement to me, which is that we need people get excited, come work for us more than it was. This game should be what you're excited about, consumers. So it's just like CD Projekt 8 years ago saying, "Hey, we're working on this. Come work for us." And now you've got all these reports about Quantic Dream already having retention in certain issues. And it's like I've enjoyed their games. You want to talk about weird? Their plots never work at the end. I mean, it's always bizarre. What's the one where you go into like the dreamscape and fight a VR computer? I can't.
Heavy Rain.
No, it's the one before that.
Beyond.
Beyond Two Souls. That one's really bad. Yeah. That's
Beyond
the one.
Two Souls had like it's like all Quantic Dream games. Has some interesting ideas. Probably doesn't handle them super well.
Indigo Prophecy has the same problem, but for some reason it hits for me. Indigo Prophecy is so good, in my opinion.
It is really, so weird. That's the one where you fight the freaking computer.
That's it. Yeah, that's a great game, though. I mean, it was a great game. I actually played it like not that long ago, and like there's a part where you have to like file at the library. You have to do like a filing system, and I was like, wow, I want to die. This is like agonizingly bad. But it's the story is so good.
It is so something. Yeah, no, it's very ambitious. And, I mean, when it is ambitious. Shown at the E3s of the world or whatever, and they're showing the different shots of like the murder scene and all that stuff. So that's really cool. Yeah. But yeah, Detroit is fine. They're
Detroit
always only ever fine.
Cringe. Oh, I hate it. I really did not like Detroit. Ains and I have had this conversation on the show actually, where I can't get past the incredibly like
of the metaphor.
Oh my god, it's so preachy and like
in your
a
face,
really cringe way. Like it's like
it's just like Kanto Bite. I agree.
All right, place your bets right now. Dead Space. Does Dead Space release in early next year? We'll say first half of next year. Place your bets.
I'm gonna say yes.
I feel like
EA doesn't really miss deadlines weirdly to their detriment often.
Yeah, I'm a firm no. So we'll see.
And I don't think Gotham Knights or Hogwarts Legacy comes out this year. I think WB's trying to.
Hogwarts Legacy already got delayed, right? I don't think it's this year anymore.
Well, it previously got delayed. They haven't since announced a new release date. It was supposedly going to be shown with the rumor was it was going to be shown with Sony's presentation. Obviously, that just didn't happen. So
20 minutes for Hogwarts Legacy. Yeah, one of the biggest IPs in the world. Cool.
We'll probably see it in the summer showcase somewhere, right? So
if it comes out this year, I to Oak's point, I don't think that's coming out this year at all. It
was originally last year. So if it misses a whole nother year, that'll be pretty interesting.
The latest update on Hogwarts is they are on track for their 2022 release date. and then a whole bunch of other stuff because you can't talk about Harry Potter without talking politics.
Have we seen that game yet, though?
Only that intro vid.
The trailer is not without things that look like gameplay, but it's all trailerized. So no, we haven't seen anybody playing it.
Yeah.
I'm
really interested to see that one.
That's what we're saying, Jacob. Gotham Knights got announced for November 25th, but these guys don't think it's coming out on that date.
I could see it because we've actually seen more of that game than Hogwarts. Like we've seen people playing that game.
45-minute playthrough of like a mission, didn't they?
And I could see it coming out this year.
I don't think they come out in March like they just did and give a date unless they were pretty solid on it. Not to say it can't slip. That happens all the time.
Last of Us Part 2 got an announced date, and then they changed it like a week later. So like 4 months after.
That was funny.
I mean, like this industry is weird with those.
Agree.
You want to personal bugaboos is I hate that outlets say it's coming. Like the headline is Gotham Knights coming out November 25th. It's like, oh no, we have too much experience with this, guys. It's announced to come out November 25th. Warner Brothers says it will come out November 25th. We're gonna look at this in a year and be like, it didn't though.
Yeah. I think you're combating the logistics of headlines with the SEO of how you write headlines, right?
Yeah, and I don't disagree with it. It's just the lawyer in me says you don't know that.
But
very true.
If it bleeds, it leads, Hogue.
And God knows I've been working on my titling.
Oh man. All right. Let's go ahead and wrap it up, guys. Chat, you've been awesome today. Thanks for hanging out with us. Got a lot going on in the SG realm. So thank you for everyone who's checked out my conversation with Colin Moriarty. That is sorry?
I saw a lot of viewers watching that one. That's awesome.
Yeah. Lots of several thousand views now. So thank you very much. Really some really nice comments about that. Appreciate it. For those interested, like Travis said, he reviewed Witch Queen for IGN. Our review from Eric is up on Witch Queen expansion as well as thoughts on Horizon.
What'd you guys give it?
He gave it a 9 actually. He really likes it. Yeah. And then our review on Horizon is up, obviously a little late, but Steve had some long-winded thoughts he wanted to share on that, so that's up as well. The unboxing video of this monstrosity of a statue is up on the channel. You can check out. Thanks for all the feedback on that. This week, I'll also put up just a little quirky thing. I actually interviewed the COO of Atari about their VCS project 2 weeks ago. That was a patron exclusive that'll go for everyone this week, so you can check that out if you're interested in that, mini PC. And then we also have another For the Record episode on RDNA 2 architecture this week, where Carl and I begin to break down what RDNA 2 actually is and break down some of the misconceptions that you see in the Twitterverse about RDNA 2. So a lot going on. Guys, Travis, what you up to? Where can people find you?
You can read my stuff on IGN.com. Follow me on Twitter at TagGuyTravis. As Ains already promoted, my Destiny review is live. I also have if you're a Destiny player, I have a weekly Xur article that I do every week where I just tell you what Xur is selling. I've started doing that for IGN. For some reason, they just hit me up and they were like, "Can you write about Xur every week?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm not."
I get tons of hits too, doesn't it?
Oh, it does, dude. It's crazy. I didn't understand because here's how you know that something weird is happening is that the person who asked me to create the article was an SEO person. He wasn't part of the regular editorial team. He was like, "Can you write every week about Xur?" And I was just like,
then said, "What's a Xur? Can you talk
exactly
about that?
what is a Xur?"
I just copy it, put it on SG, and you promise.
He literally doesn't know what Xur is. Every week I write the article, and then he does his SEO magic, and then he sends me a screenshot, and he goes, "Is this him? Can I put this photo of him up there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's the guy."
I'm glad that there's checking processes. That's
yeah, for sure.
Does he have a squid face? Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, he's got it. He looks like a rotted pasta. That's the guy. You can do my stuff there. Obviously, I do this show. I do a Destiny show on Thursdays that you probably know about called The Last Word. And hopefully I'm going to be doing an IGN podcast here pretty soon. Fireteam Chat will be coming back for a Witch Queen special. We've been planning that for a while. really hard to plan with all the different people and the different schedules, especially since the host is a new father, and I'm sure the other two people in this room know much better than I what that means. So yeah, that's going on. But yeah, other than that, you should watch Hoag's videos. I watched one of his videos this week where he had an inside scoop on some interesting situation. I thought that was really cool. Also, he's got his face on his videos now, which I watch his videos with my phone in my pocket, and I took it out and I wasn't expecting to see this guy's face, and I was like, whoa, he's on camera now. This is
people feel about it.
Yeah, we're getting we're going through a bit of a Hoag renaissance. I don't know if you guys know this. A Hoagassance. A Hoagassance sounds like a period of time where hoagies were really good. So I don't know about
sandwich.
Yeah, hell of a sandwich.
Yeah. No, I mean, thank you for that. That's a very nice compliment. Yeah, we had a hell of a week in virtual legality. We had our biggest growth week in a long time.
Nice.
For any number of reasons. One of which was the Artesian build story continued until they froze all the assets and fired all the employees. And I had been in talks with some people in the company. So I was able to give some quotes and some insight and some color there in a way that I don't usually do. Not an investigative journalist, not what I do, but it was very interesting, very insightful, I think, and one of my favorite videos that I did this week. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, business law, companies folding, companies growing, whatever it might be, virtual legality is the place for you. We are growing, still best kept secret, maybe Season Gaming is the best kept secret. But yeah, if you like,
certainly better kept than your channel at this point.
You'll get it in both places. You won't always get my face. I kind of try to pick and choose where I want to be passionate and emotive still. So I'm about half and half, Travis. You never know when you're going to see Rick just pop up.
Nice.
But I did that. I talked a lot about Activision Blizzard was getting some reporting on it for compliance or non-compliance with the California law that requires gender board quotas. We talked about some of the challenges there. So a little bit more depthful legal stuff happened this week. And then, elsewhere on the internet, I spent 6 hours going over the Jussie Smollett sentencing hearing. So, I'm all over the place this week. Do check it out.
No, I can't look at that. That's I got to look away from that situation.
Yeah, I don't blame you. At Hoaglaw on Twitter, youtube.com/Hoaglaw, virtual legality. I'm very, we hit 5 million views on that channel for the first time. Awesome. I think you can only hit a view count for the first time. But without trying to sound arrogant, I'm pretty proud about that. So I think very, very cool. Come check us out. And I will definitely be on the next Season Gaming Bitcast because this is more fun than a lot of the stuff that I talk about every day. Certainly in the law firm side of things. So I very much appreciate the invite, and as always, this is cool.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Chat again. You've been awesome. Thank you very much. Anyone listening to this later, we appreciate you. So thanks for tuning in. As always, we'll be back in our normal foursome next week. Dan will be back, and we'll see what happens this week that we get to talk about next week. So, as always, thanks for tuning in to Bitcast, your weekly gaming show covering all things Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, and PC with industry and technical insight. Until next week.